The sky so far away tonight, but I can't lose this war, get a pride of a falling night. Thought that I was fit to fight for us to be. You gave me life for loving me. Tell me, where did we go so wrong?
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be conducting you this evening Beyond the Veil. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife and co-conductor, Mrs. Gio.
Good morning or afternoon, evening, everyone.
Yeah, we have an incredible show planned for you today. In just a few moments, we will be joined by Amir. Insanity Is Sanity. I have been talking about this guy for a couple of months on the show now. We've been trying to connect because he has some awesome insight into the artificial intelligence and the AI structure that we live in. He's completely just nailed everything when it comes down to the cloning programs, to numerology, so on and so forth. We played some of his videos on the show in the past, and we finally have made contact with the elusive Amir. So I'm really looking forward to really diving headfirst into all of these topics that we talk about here on Beyond the Veil, and also the topic of, I guess we should call it megadosing. You think that's a good term for it? Megadosing, like taking this like to whole other levels. I mean, 5 dried grams in total darkness is what Terrence McKenna says. Amir says 30 dried grams in total darkness. So he's really up the ante here, and I'm looking forward to also traveling deeper and deeper and deeper myself. As I said before on previous shows, I never thought ever to take 30 grams of mushrooms. That just seemed like outrageous, and especially to the point of getting to the point of not remembering the experience. So I'm really interested to talk to Amir as far as how to make that progression and break these bounds of hyperspace consciousness without hitting that point of not remembering, because there is a blackout point at some point. The most that I've ever done is a gram of DMT in one evening, and that was done orally, and it was done throughout 3 or 4 different doses. I don't remember because I've done this more than once, but it was either 3 or 4 doses throughout the course of the evening, as opposed to all at once. I imagine all at once you would hit again that level of blackout, of being blacked out, and that's that. So it's really, really interesting. What do you think?
I think it's kind of like taking a computer and putting it into overdrive. You know how when you're playing certain video games, you can mess with the processor, you can mess with the video card to make it go faster or to make things graphically look awesome. And that's kind of what we do when we take psychedelics. If you take mega doses, sometimes it can just kind of blow out the whole thing, and so you end up just not being able to remember any of the experience. But I think Amir has found a way to kind of step up, using it as like a stepping stool to higher and higher.
1 gram at a time.
Yeah, 1 gram at a time to higher and higher doses. Apparently, according to scientists, 30 grams of mushrooms would be about 1,000 micrograms to 2,000 micrograms of LSD. So these are huge, huge doses. Even 5 grams of mushrooms is equivalent to 208 micrograms of LSD, and this is a huge amount of psychedelics. And the fact that he's able to remember his experiences is just incredible.
Yes. So, as I've said, I've never had 5 grams of mushrooms at my disposal at any given point, much less 30.
We wish.
But maybe it is time to put it out there to the universe that that's what it needs to bring us. So feel free to send us all the mushrooms that you have out there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just kidding, of course. But we'll be right back. Much more coming up right here as we step even further beyond the veil.
my dear traveler. The purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness. And bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together. And that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise. Follow your conductors. And fear no danger. As you step beyond the veil.
Pushing the bounds of consciousness and traversing deeper and deeper and deeper into the hyperspace realms is something that I have always been fascinated in. I've been doing psychedelics since I was about 14 years old, but back then I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, we were just taking acid and going to raves and just dancing and having fun and doing all that. We didn't really understand setting, intention, focus, really breaking the barriers of consciousness. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that I really started to fully understand this concept. And the further I got in my journey, the more I realized just how much of reality needed to be broken down. And I have to thank the Flat Earth movement for helping me to think outside of the box to the point of questioning the very foundation of reality. While I was shown several different ideas of the matrix and the digital simulation that we live in, I didn't have the context because I wasn't questioning the very foundation of reality to fully understand exactly what we're immersed in. I never would have thought that the conclusion would be that we're immersed in a virtual reality computer simulation and that there is this giant AI out there that has been pulling the strings and moving things back and forth and systematically programming reality. And this is one of the reasons why we find so many different numbers, 33, 13, etc., etc. Amir breaks this down on his YouTube channel in a particular video, What's Going On, AI Takeover, Simulated Reality, and the Real Meaning of Numerology. And he's got many, many more awesome videos over at Insanity Is Sanity. Very, very inspirational stuff. But one thing that I wanted to address real quick before we jump into it is we're talking about megadosing this evening, and this is taking like major doses of psychedelics. So first of all, checking the LD50, you see that the overdose threshold is way larger than even the megadoses that we're talking about tonight. So there's really no harm in taking these doses. At least there's no harm to the body, especially with DMT. I think you have to take like, what was it, like 50 grams or something ridiculous like that. Don't quote me on that, but 50 grams or if not 500 grams. I know that it's astronomical amounts in order to even hit that 50% mark where the LD50 says that there's an overdose possibility or a fatal possibility. So with psilocybin, LSD, things like that, LSD, I think it's like you have to take like 11,000 hits of LSD or something in order to hit that overdose threshold too. So it's physiologically safe to our understanding, but we're not doctors and we're not recommending that anybody goes out and tries this.
The LD50 for psilocybin is 2,857 grams.
Okay.
So you'd have to take that much in order to. Yeah.
All right. So we're only talking about taking 30 here.
Yeah.
So there's still a pretty good safe area that we have to work with here. But it can be psychologically impactful. And I think that a lot of people have apprehension to psychedelics because of how disconnected you get from your body. I received a couple of comments over the last couple of days, and this seems to be pretty standard. I mean, this has been happening since the beginning of the journey, where people always jump in and they say, hey, I can achieve these states through meditation. And I just say, hey, good for you. And that's it. And I just, pat them on the back and pat them on the head and just send them on their way and let them continue on their ego trips. But I've received enough to where I think I just want to just speak from my heart and just say what I think. I think what's going on is that when you say you can achieve these levels through meditation, or these people come in and say, oh, well, I've been to hyperspace and I've been to all these realms and I've never used DMT or ayahuasca or psilocybin, et cetera, et cetera. I think really what's going on is that either the person doesn't have a reference point, so they don't quite understand the depths of how deep this consciousness, this pool of consciousness actually goes, or it's an ego thing and they want to feel like they're talking the talk, but they're not actually walking the walk, because it is pretty scary. And I have had some experiences that were quite terrifying, and not because anything scary, not because there were scary visions or anything like that, but just being so disconnected from the body. It still makes me, I still get pre-flight jitters, and I've been working with this stuff for 25 freaking years, and still before we take a heavy amount of DMT or something, I still get those pre-flight jitters, like, oh no, it's the ego responding and saying, hey, I don't want to die, I want to stay here, and you're like, no, just shut up, you're taking the back seat tonight. But I think what's happening is a lot of these people respond from that ego, and they want to say, "Oh no, well I know I've seen these places, and but I'd never do DMT or psilocybin." Now, if somebody can achieve these states naturally without the use of psychedelics or any of that, I see no reason why they couldn't achieve those states and achieve the psychedelic state too. Like, it's cool. Like, if you can do that, that's fine. Sit down and eat 30 grams of mushrooms, and then tell me that you can do that naturally, and I will be in complete and total agreement with you. But if you're not willing to eat the 30 grams of mushrooms, and you're going to try to tell me that you can achieve these states without doing that, I can't really take you seriously. So there you go. I've said it's something I've been holding in for several years now, but I just wanted to lay it all out there, because now we're talking about taking things to the next level. And since we are talking about taking things to the next level, and again, I want to just say this for the audience: these are levels that I haven't achieved yet. I've done a gram of DMT, but I've never done 30 grams of mushrooms. So this is next level stuff. So now it's time to just shut off all the kiddie stuff and all the little kid stuff, and it's time to get serious with what we're talking about tonight. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Any thoughts before we bring Amir on?
I'm really excited to speak to somebody who's willing to jump into that pool of awareness the way he has. It's going to be really interesting.
Awesome. So I think we have Amir on the line, and hopefully we've got all our tech stuff down good. Amir, how are you doing, sir? Oh, I don't think we're going out to Amir. Let me see what's going on here and see if we can get this situated here. So bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hold on a second. Can you pick it up for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not afraid of psychedelics. I know that my ego is deeply afraid of psychedelics, not because it's about to die, but because it's not going to be in control anymore. And when the ego's not in control, you're more vulnerable. You do open yourself up to being vulnerable to life and to the world and around you, to the people in your life. And you kind of have to wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit when it comes to keeping the ego suppressed, suppressing the ego, not actually killing it, but suppressing it and keeping it under control. And that's a huge thing for me and for a lot of people, is when you're thinking about going into these states, the ego will do whatever it needs to do to keep you from going there. So it's gonna make you feel icky, or you're gonna just, oh, I'm tired. I don't really feel like this right now. But that's why you have to do it, because after you do it, you ask yourself, why did I wait so long before going to that place? And, why did I wait so long? I feel so good right now. I feel so clean. And I think when you're getting into these mega doses, the potential for not just awareness, but the potential for not just ego death, but completely having control over your ego is indeed possible. It is indeed possible. So the most I've ever had is 40 grams of acacia at once, and that's about 400 milligrams of DMT. That's not nearly as much as what Chris has been able to take, or especially like Amir with 30 grams of mushrooms. That's incredible. But I'm looking forward to jumping in with mega doses here pretty soon. And what I'd like to do is kind of use it as a stepping stool process where you go a gram more each time and see how far I can go and see how much I can process and how amazing things can be.
Yes, definitely. So, oh, let's see if we can get Amir back on here. You know, we should have tested this prior to the show. This is totally my fault. I'm the one that didn't do all the sound testing. So, nope. It
Oh,
is.
somebody asked if we had Michael Tellinger, if we'd had Michael Tellinger on in the past, and I just want to say Michael Tellinger is a really good friend of ours. We've had him on the show several times throughout the years. He's a great guy, really is. I think he's also a psychonaut, but he focuses more on history and archaeology, which I enjoy that too. I really like going into the past, especially his theory of Africa and the beginnings of Adam and South Africa, actually. And it's really interesting to hear that. But I don't think Michael Tellinger's ever taken mega doses of psychedelics. We'll have to ask him. So I'm not sure, though. Isn't Neil
Amir says, "You know what's going on, right?" I said, "Yeah, the AI is hitting us really good here." So I'm gonna put the camera over to Cherie here.
So Neil Adams said, but wait, I'm no authority on the subject. But isn't DMT a naturally occurring substance in the brain? Is it not there for possible to unlock DMT access through non-drug use, similar to altered states of consciousness achieved through dancing? Yes.
Yes.
But like Terrence McKenna said in the past, he said, you can get there through shamanic drumming and dancing and those kinds of things, but you can't really get there. You can get on the road to there, and you can start the process of DMT release, but there simply isn't enough DMT in your body to really get you to the same places that smoking it or taking it orally is going to get you. It's kind of like you have vitamin D in your body, but you can't just live and have enough vitamin D, especially if you live up in the north during the winter. You have to take extra vitamin D in order to get your body to a place where it's balanced. With DMT, exogenous forms of DMT kind of have to be introduced in order for you to get to that place. You can start the process with dancing and drumming and all of those endogenous activities, but they're not going to give you enough just because you simply don't have enough in your body to make that kind of dose. I know that whenever especially if I drink Cappy during an experience, the amount of love and light and beauty that is involved is just incredible. And so I can definitely say music and dancing and all of that really does help.
Well said. So we just did this badass intro for Amir. He didn't hear any of it, so he's gonna have to go back to the archives and hear how we were really talking him up. So I hope that he lives up to how we were talking him up. I think we have him on though, and I think everything is good. Amir, do we have you on with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Awesome, loud and clear.
Awesome.
Good.
The delay, because I can see a delay on Skype.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of a delay on Skype, so maybe during the break we can try to get Zoom working again. But let's just proceed. I know there's a little bit of a delay on the video, but we were talking about how you are traversing through 30 grams. You've worked your way up to kind of that. Before we jump into that, though, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this. I first heard about you in the context of Flat Earth. I had no idea that you were really taking the hyperspace journey so seriously. I think we were on Globebusters at one point in time together a while back, and I wish I would have picked your brain even more back then, but I didn't really understand who you were back then or what you were exploring. So I'm glad that we get a chance to speak tonight, but take us away, please.
So where do I start? For me, it started back in, I think it was 2013. I came across DMT, and prior to that, I was the average guy that if you'd have mentioned psychedelics to, I would have freaked. But something about DMT sort of drew me to it, and this whole 2012 thing was like, it was a time when I was at university and everyone was talking about it. So after uni finished, I was researching DMT for quite a while, and then I got my hands on some, and it completely, like, it changed my life basically, and completely shattered my perception of reality. And for a while, actually, kind of like you, Chris, I started falling for the whole new age thing, and that went on for a while until I came across flat Earth, which again, in a strange way, sort of changed my life by putting me on the right path.
So did you do the DMT first and then get into the flat Earth, or was it the flat Earth first and then the DMT revelations?
No. It was DMT first, and then flat Earth maybe 2 years later.
Okay.
So within this 2-year period, I was literally becoming a new age fanatic while experimenting with psychedelics. Because the thing is, there's so much rubbish out there where most of it makes a lot of sense because it's mixed in with so much truth. So when you have an experience like you do with psychedelics, and there's an answer out there that explains it very well, you don't tend to question, oh, well, maybe that's not the correct answer, and you just sort of fall into it. And that's sort of what happened until I realized, hang on a minute, if the Earth is flat and they've lied about the biggest thing that they could have lied about, what else is false? And that sort of set me back a bit, and this is where we are today.
That's where it kind of shattered for me too. Like I said in the intro, questioning the whole idea of the construct itself never crossed my mind whatsoever. But once I did, that's when everything just broke open. And so that's where I find the most value in the flat Earth. It's not necessarily that the world is flat in the context that the way that they're trying to prove, but rather it's a way to question the very foundation of reality and the construct itself, which to me, it took me to artificial simulation naturally.
Yeah, exactly. Same for me. Exact same thing for me. I was stuck in flat Earth for a while. I mean, this is the whole reason I started my channel was, I mean, the very first few videos I made were just flat Earth. And, but after a while, I just realized, well, where is this going to end? I mean, where does it go after flat Earth? Then what? I mean, if it is flat, if it is a construct, which to me at this point, and even back then I was quite certain that it is a construct, something or someone made it. And so, you know, it just all made sense. Well, if it's flat, then we've got to get to the bottom line. Who made it? Why are we here? Because just being flat doesn't, you know, the Earth being flat doesn't answer everything. Because
Right.
there's a lot of questions.
It did definitely leave a lot of questions. Let me ask you this. You said you were pretty apprehensive to psychedelics, and then all of a sudden you tried DMT. DMT is, as most people would agree, one of the most powerful psychedelics known to man. So you jumped like right into the like college level, postgraduate type of stuff and just ran with it. Like, what was that like for you?
I did. I took the plunge. It was quite scary. But the thing is, I did quite a lot of research. I did maybe 1.5 years of research before even I got hold of any. And I studied everything about it. I even read through some of the scientific studies that were being done. And I studied chemistry myself. So I kind of understood quite a lot of it. And it just made sense. I just knew somehow something was calling me. The thing with DMT is, I'm sure you agree, there's a calling. It doesn't just appear on your lap for no reason. There's always a calling. Like everyone that I've met who's done it has heard of it before, and they say there was a calling and it just appeared when I needed it. So for me, it was kind of like that, and I just took that and I went with it and I just did it. And the first time I actually broke through, I completely changed my life. Like it rewired my brain completely. I had a smoking habit which I could not get rid of for the life of me. I finished university, I did my exams, and I was smoking quite a lot. One DMT trip, 7-8 minutes later, it was completely gone. And I was just like, wow, if that can happen with one trip, you know, what else is there?
Imagine the potential.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Exactly, yeah.
So was this the first experience that you had, or were there a series of experiences leading into this one particular experience that really just changed the brain?
Well, there were a few experiences prior, but the thing with DMT was when I first got it, it was just so difficult for me to grasp how to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was constantly messing it up. So it was never a complete breakthrough. So I would have done it maybe 5-6 times prior, but I never got completely, I didn't leave this realm per se. But it was always very grounded. I was just mainly visuals. But yeah, the very first time I broke through, this was exactly what happened, and just went from there. But the thing with DMT for me is it's never been easy to ingest. That's why I don't like doing it, because especially if you're doing it alone, it's very difficult. You've got to get the pipe. You've got to make sure you take enough. And I just didn't like the process. That's why I kind of started leaning towards the mushrooms a bit more, because they're very easy to consume. They're just very easy to find. I mean, they grow here everywhere in London. I go to the park to walk my dog, and they're everywhere. So that's kind of why I sort of lean towards that.
My frequency must be the complete opposite of mushrooms. Like, we live down in Texas, and down there they're supposed to grow everywhere. Every time we would go out, we wouldn't find a single damn thing except for those little like imposter ones. And I mean, it was time and time and time and time again. I just, never came across them. I came across them a few times, but not in the abundance that people talk about. But I know exactly what you mean with DMT. That's one of the aversions that I have to it, is that the smoking it and then drinking it too. The ayahuasca's nice, but after a while it starts to wear on you. You're like, ugh. And I find myself like one night going, well, maybe I'll just wait till the next night. Maybe I'll wait till the next night. And it's not that I'm afraid of the experience. It's that I don't want that taste in my mouth. It's the taste, what it comes down to. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I haven't actually tried ayahuasca myself, but just the thought of preparing it, brewing it, and then drinking, and then having to go through like a detox and maybe throw up, it's too much. I don't like all of the preparation. I just like the simplicity. The mushrooms are just there. You just eat them. Like, I make tea with them, and it's actually quite nice. So yeah, so ayahuasca and DMT, they both have their it's quite difficult to consume. So for me, I started to sway away from DMT after about maybe trying it for maybe like 6-7 months. And that was mainly why.
Okay. Cherie does all the brewing, and she will spend literally all day and the next day
2 days.
brewing a good batch of ayahuasca, because you've got to put the love into it. You've got to put all that into it in order to get the good experience. And then you have the whole MAOI effect too. If you don't take enough of the MAOI and you've spent all that time brewing, all that time preparing,
Total
you
waste.
drink it, you're ready, everything like that, and it doesn't work because you didn't take enough of the MAOI. There are a lot of factors for sure. So I can see why you're leaning more towards psilocybin. Now, Cherie, correct me if I'm wrong, but psilocybin is one molecule away from DMT. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is. I think there's a. It converts into psilocin, and that's why something called 4-ACO DMT. It has DMT in the name, and yet it converts to psilocin in your body, which is what magic mushrooms turn into once your body's done processing it. So they're very, very chemically similar. If not, they're basically like brother and sister in the chemical world.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We are about to hit the break, so right on the other side, I do want to get into some of the deeper DMT revelations. I also, at some point in the broadcast, I want to talk about the numerology and how all of this matrix is made up of, the cloning program, literally everything that Amir has broken down. I mean, we've talked about this kind of stuff for years on the show, but Amir put it together in a 12-minute video and did it way better justice than I ever could have. So much more. We've just gotten started right here on Beyond the Veil.
Before the soul can see, the harmony within must first be attained, and the fleshly eyes be rendered blind to all illusion, as you step beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into it. We have Amir, Insanity Is Sanity, on with us, and we're talking about the depths and boundaries of hyperspace. Are there boundaries? Are there depths? I mean, there are depths for sure, but are there boundaries, or is hyperspace limitless? I would say that hyperspace actually, what it is a series of levels, and when you can break the very last boundary of hyperspace, you can actually jump out of the matrix. But we'll get more into that as the broadcast progresses. Amir, I did want to ask you, you said you've worked with DMT, really, really heavy doses of DMT, and now you're working with psilocybin. At what point do you find that the psilocybin actually lines up with a DMT or smoke DMT like experience? Because I've done 3 grams before, 4 grams before. I don't think I've ever hit 5 or 6 or 7, just because I haven't had that many in my possession, and I never would have even thought of doing more than 5. I figure 5, 6, 7 is enough. But it's what level would you say that it starts to really turn into a DMT experience?
Well, I actually haven't taken 30 yet, Chris. I'm working my way up. I'm actually the most I've taken with mushrooms is 7 grams, and with DMT, it's probably about 80 milligrams smoke DMT that I've taken max. So I'm not there yet. It's still something I'm working on. But at 7 grams, it wasn't anywhere close to DMT. I'll be honest, it wasn't anywhere close. But that's because the thing with mushrooms is it's quite a big jump from, say, from 3 grams to 5. Even though it's quite a small dose, the difference is quite a lot. And so I'm guessing by the time you reach 30 grams, it's pretty much the same. I mean, the guy, the Kalindi I, is it? I don't know. Don't know how to pronounce his surname, but he talks about 30-gram psilocybin trips and how it's this indistinguishable. It's like traversing the DMT realm, basically, for longer periods. So
Interesting. So what is your plan to get to that level? Because I know you were talking about this on Facebook, where you work your way from 7 grams to 8 grams to 9 grams, et cetera, et cetera. How long do you think it'll take to get to that level?
I have no idea. I haven't set myself a time limit because I'm suspecting that at some point I'm going to have to say, hang on a minute, I'm going to stay here for a while because it's too much. Because it's a lot to process, especially especially at high doses. Like when I would do DMT and I would come back from the experience, it was so overwhelming that I couldn't literally touch any DMT for at least a month. And because my brain had to process it, and a lot of the information that I would receive from my experience wouldn't come to me until a few weeks later. So it is quite a lot to process. So I'm assuming it's going to take probably quite a while to get to 30. I've got no intention of just jumping straight up there. So
Why not?
we'll see.
What if you just did it, man? What if you just did it? Just go for it.
Just go for it, 30?
Yeah, just do it.
Then you can report back your findings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. The thing is, you're going to have to be able to articulate that. I mean, at 30 grams, if I come back, I probably wouldn't be able to say anything about it.
That's a great point.
So I'm thinking, that if the experience is gradual, you bring things back slowly and then you connect the dots. And then you get there. I don't think taking 30 grams will show you anything if your intentions are not right and you haven't got the experience. I also sort of got that same feeling with DMT as well. It doesn't really show you what you want; it shows you what you need. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can't really trick it, I don't think.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
you
true.
can't.
And then you hit that blackout point too.
Right. That's what I was about
where
to say.
you take too much and you don't remember anything coming back.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've actually had that once. I fell asleep on like the peak, and I think that at some point it gets so much that your body has to shut down for your mind to be able to go and experience whatever it is, and then come back, and then for your brain to be able to decode all that. I mean, I think our brains are very limited in what they can do, and that's why these experiences are so transcendent, because they are beyond words. So they're not part of what the brain processes. They're something that takes place on another realm or another dimension or whatever you want to call it.
So, what do you think this DMT realm is, or the psilocybin realm? I have my thoughts on it, but when you first entered it, obviously you had one thought. As you entered it more and more and more, your analysis, I'm sure, changed of what exactly this realm is. But where would you take the listeners in regard to the hyperspace realm itself?
That's a difficult question. With DMT, I would say, because of its connection to, so we're still not sure if it's produced in the pineal gland, but we know that it's produced in the body, and we can find it in so many living things, organisms that are out there, right? So just putting two and two together would suggest that maybe DMT is some sort of vessel that connects whatever this is to wherever we're from, right? and whatever is in between. So when you're taking these substances, you're basically traveling up towards the exit, not the exit, but the ultimate source of who you are and what everything may be. And then, sorry, I've just blanked out on the question again. What was the question? What the DMT realm is. Yeah. So I think it's a mixture of many things. It's a mixture of what we believe and what we perceive reality to be, and what we ultimately are. So I mean, just taking a little bit of mushroom or smoking some DMT isn't going to give you all of the answers, because I think this construct is so big. It's not just a basic simulation on a hard drive. I think it's multi-layered and it's so complex that we can't even wrap our heads around it yet. So to answer what that other realm is, I can't really say. I just know it's something that is beyond this 3D realm. It's something that still needs to be discovered. That's why I've got such an interest in taking such higher doses, because I think that's one way you could get these answers of what that place is.
Well, let me ask you this. So you mentioned earlier that you had an experience where you just quit smoking and that's it. Can you describe a little bit of that experience for some of the listeners? Because I think that's one of the reasons why they turn to psychedelics and DMT and things like that, because they're looking for some form of healing.
Yeah. That experience I'll never forget. It was one of the most surreal things that ever happened. It was I had this vaporizer that was in the shape of a light bulb. So you would put the DMT in and you would heat it up and it would fill up. And then you had enough to just go in one. You don't have to take 3 doses. And then, so I took this DMT and instantly, within, I would say, a split second, everything around me changed. Like the whole room began to morph into some sort of cartoon. It was cartoon-like, but it was more real than life. It's so weird to explain, but everything just changed, and it was so overwhelming that I just couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I was crying and laughing within, at the same time, within 10 seconds of just taking this substance, right? So everything's changing, and then suddenly I'm in just this buzzing sound in the back of my head. Is that zzz, and it gets, I think Terence McKenna did a very good example of what it sounds like. And it almost gets to the front of your forehead, and everything just exploded, and I was in total blackness. And then and I had all these kaleidoscopic colors come and go and shapes, and I was approached by an entity that I still don't know. I just know she was a female entity, but I don't know what she was or who she was. But she came up to me and she said, "Look, you're sick, but don't worry, I'm going to heal you." And she almost sat on my chest. And a few minutes later, I came out of the trip. And at that time, my first instinct would have been to grab a cigarette after any situation, like eating, just waking up, whatever. It was just to grab a cigarette. So I came out of the experience. I was like, damn, I need a cigarette. Reached for my cigarettes, and instantly, as soon as I put them to my lips, I gagged. And this went on for like 2-3 days, and the sensation of wanting a cigarette just completely disappeared. Like it just went instantly. And I didn't actually connect the dots until a few days later. I just thought maybe I'm sick, I've got like a throat thing. But it just went away, and it's been like 4 years maybe now that I still haven't touched a cigarette. So that was quite life-changing, because I was smoking a lot. And it was at a point where I knew I was sick. And that's why it was funny, because when the entity said to me, "You're sick," during that time, I knew that there was something wrong. I was constantly coughing and just felt like shit. So it was quite ironic. And that's why I think a lot of it can be subconscious. It's our own mind doing the work. So maybe my own mind realized I need to be fixed. And so you just rewired the brain. So, but I think, that was very, very life-changing experience. So
Awesome. Well, you mentioned that DMT only shows you what you're ready for, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. Through my experiences, I had to work myself up to seeing this freaking AI that's out there. It just didn't appear like right off the bat. I had to completely deprogram myself, completely kill my ego, completely go through traumatic experiences and so on and so forth. So it seems to be like a similar progression that you went through as well. At what point did you find yourself to be, I guess, ready to see what really lays beyond the veil? And was there any type of Hyperspace ceremony, for lack of a better term. That seemed to be in my case. Like there was this ceremony where I was given a light sword, and like there was this whole breaking down of the ego and all of that. But it was only after many, many, many journeys into hyperspace. But that's the only way that I can describe it as. It was like this consciousness ceremony that was taking place. Did you experience anything similar?
I didn't have a ceremony, but there was this one experience where there were a lot of creatures, almost like as soon as I went into the experience, they were formed in a circle, and they were dancing and cheering. And as soon as I went, they were like, "Oh, he's here, come." And I don't know if it was a ceremony per se, but it was had a very childish like feel to it. It was very strange, but I don't know if it was a ceremony. But no, I haven't had the light sword yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. The light sword's waiting there, but maybe it's not in everybody's path, because I realize the light sword itself isn't even real. It was only part of the progression, part of the stepping stone to building up that warrior, the warrior self, and removing all the ego. But you realize that at one point you don't even need a light sword anymore, because everything's already inside of you. So all these manifestations that seemingly are external are really just manifestations from within.
Yeah, man, and of course, all of us have a different path. We're not all gonna experience the same thing. So I think, yeah, everyone goes to the same conclusion eventually, but just different paths. And I think that's the beauty of it. We're never all gonna agree, and we're never all gonna see the same things or experience the same things. That's why I think no one is able to come out and give you the ultimate truth, because there isn't an ultimate truth. It's almost like a strange loop, like a paradox, the whole thing. So you really have to get there yourself, and no one can show you the way. Well, they can show you the way, but they can't show you how to get there.
Right.
Or no, they can opposite. They can show you how to get there, but they can't show you the way. So you just got to get there yourself.
The way that I say it is they can shine the light on the door for you. And that's it. And they
Yeah.
can say, hey, there's another door here. You may have missed it. I'm just going to shine the light on it. It may be one you want to go down. If not, it's all our own individual journey. And taking
And
it on that
find the key yourself.
Yes. Taking it on that individual level has been so much more powerful, because now we're walking our own paths. Many people are sharing their experiences. By doing that, they're shining light on our experiences. And I mean, it's just growing and growing and growing, rather than trying to tell people, hey, this is the way, this is the only way, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what the New Age does. The New Age, I think I'm saying they as in like this collective energy rather than any particular person, but they feel that there is an awakening taking place. So they want to grab that awakening and lead it in one direction, where the only path, as you said, is completely individualized.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So you went through this whole process, breaking down yourself, et cetera, et cetera. At what point did you really start to break down the nature of reality, and how did that go?
I think it's the same for most of us. I think it was when Flat Earth began. I mean, I Flat Earth changed my view on everything. I knew I had to start from scratch, so I was very open-minded to new ideas and stuff. And I got into gematria of Zach Hubbard's work. I think, is he still on on the TFR show? Or
He is.
He is.
yeah, his work was great. He sort of woke me up to that.
He's a character.
And yeah, he is. He's funny.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah. But his idea was that, I mean, I can see his work. It works. It's true. There's something going on, and I could see this, but I just could not shake the idea that it was a group of men controlling all of this. All of this number system, this flat Earth, all of these lies were just so big that after a while I just realized, hang on a minute, how is it possible for men to lie to us like this? And I just couldn't find an answer for it until I realized, hang on a minute. And the thing with the simulation idea is it's something that's always been there in the back of my head. I think in the back of most of our heads for quite a while. It's just recently become mainstream, but it's always been there. And it's always been an idea I've loved since I was a kid, because I've always been into computers. But I started entertaining the idea that this might be a simulation probably a couple years after Flat Earth, maybe 2015, 2016. So not long. But then, and that's probably when it all just clicked, like the gematria, how the lies could be so big, how they can be so perfect. Because if you look, a lot of the events that take place always work out in their benefit. Always, nothing ever goes wrong. So that shows you that these events, everything that's going on, is staged so perfectly, mathematically perfectly, that no human could, come up with something like this. So it kind of all made sense, or just clicked into one, I guess.
You know, the way that you presented it, that it's all a computer program being run, and you made an example in that video. If the variable equals 3, then do this, else do this, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why we find 3, 33, 13 over and over and over again. That makes so much more sense to me than a group of people sitting in a room planning all of this stuff, purposefully putting all of these different characters and events and narratives and storyboards and so on and so forth. And that's why, in my opinion, too, that we see the agenda repeating itself over and over and over again. I used to call it pro wrestling, because in pro wrestling, I was watching that for a couple of years until I realized all of the storylines were just being repeated over and over and over again. And I said, okay, I understand it's scripted, but now not only is it scripted, but it's poorly scripted and is being repeated again. And I started noticing that in the truth movement, in the narratives that we were seeing on the news, the same thing repeated over and over and over again, like a cycle. So I thought, how could this be possible? Then you broke it down with computer simulation, and that just clicked right there completely and totally.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually watching a lot of your guys' show. I've been watching for quite a while. So I learned a lot from you guys. I mean, I didn't come up with all of it myself. It's a collective work. I think
It is.
And I
It
think,
is.
and I think this is what's good about this sort of platform, is that, like, you can get different minds that come together. I mean, like, we're talking right now, it's not just me, you, and Cherie, it's all of the people that are participating, right? So you get all of these collective little minds that come together, and then they share ideas, and then we sort of merge all of the ideas into one, and then we get rid of the stuff that makes no sense anymore, and then we sort of come up with this new concept. So I think it's a work that we all do. I don't think it was I didn't come up with all of the ideas. It just sort of clicked.
Well, you connected all the ideas, though, and the way you connected them, like I said, I mean, it elevated my consciousness to the point to where it made everything click. So maybe we brought a few ideas to the table, but the way you connected them, I've got to give you all the credit for that, because that's just freaking incredible. The cloning program, I never thought to bring the cloning program into all of this, but then you brought the idea to the table that the AI is manifesting these clones, and then now we're manifesting these physical clones, which are actually taking over some of the roles of some of these Hollywood actors and so on and so forth. We've always talked about MK Ultra mind control, and that a lot of these actors are on mind control, or under the influence of mind control, I should say. But maybe it's even deeper than that, that these people have actually checked out. They're no longer there. Maybe they're living on an island, going on these spiritual journeys or whatever's going on with them, and then they have their clone actually doing the work for them in Hollywood.
Yeah. And also, I was thinking about this recently, the way they say they sell their soul to the devil. What does that actually mean? So if you think about it, they're selling the soul, so they're exiting the game, right?
Ah.
So, and who's the devil? The devil is, I guess, the AI.
Ah.
Yeah, so it does make sense. I mean, it just, nothing else, answered it for me. Why are they doing this? Why are they cloning celebrities? And we see a lot. I mean, it's not conspiracy anymore. It's obvious. It's completely obvious. Something weird is going on, and they're all part of some group. So yeah, to me as well, it's the best explanation. It completely just obliterates anything else that's there.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And you see these people, and I'm doing air quotes when I say people, you see them breaking down, and they just frozen. And it's like, what's going on here? So I would agree with you wholeheartedly that it is clones. One of the things that I've been pissing a lot of people off with is the idea of NPCs, non-player characters. I mean, people have been bringing this to a lot of people's a lot of people's attention, and saying, hey, look what Chris and Cherie are talking about.
Right.
And the reaction is always the same. That's dangerous. That's what Hitler used to think. They liken me to Hitler, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, hey, look, this is the truth as I know it. I had an experience one time, which was the first glimpse of this, that I was seeing lights in some people's heads and lights and no lights in other people's heads. And I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's some people walking around here that are kind of like organic containers. They don't have anything inside of them, not some kind of consciousness moving them around. And we were still kind of stuck in the New Age program. So we were thinking there was perhaps some kind of event where some of the souls were removed from here and the organic containers were walking around. And the New Age movement says that there's organic containers walking around with nothing. But I would say these are just flat out NPCs. So one of the questions that I've posed is, what's the ratio of what I call organic consciousness to NPCs? I said something like there's got to be at least 500 million, if not a billion, organic consciousness, and the rest are NPCs. And listeners were writing in and saying, no, you're wrong about that. It's more like 100,000. It's 10,000 organic consciousness, and the rest are NPCs. So what are you feeling in regard to that?
But I'll start off by saying this. If people I actually have family members close that I know are NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
So this doesn't make them any less than us. It just means that they're different, right? So there's no reason to get pissed off about it. I mean, and to answer your question, I've been thinking about this quite a lot. I think that we are in the minority. The real consciousness is in the minority, but we have a majority vote. That means if we are all consciously awake to something, we have more control over the NPCs, but we're still in the minority. So I think there's a lot more of them out there. I think your 500 million to a billion sounds about right. I mean, here in London, there's a stadium just close to my house, and it holds about 100,000 people. And there's a football match at least once a week. And you see these drones that come in herds, like drunk and just swearing and pissing everywhere. And they go to these matches. So I know there's at least 100,000 just in a match that I can see down the road. So there's a lot. There's a lot. I think that they're in the majority.
I would say so as well. And I've seen the drones walking around, and my jaw just kind of drops on the floor sometimes just watching them interact with each other.
Yeah.
But I realize that, this computer simulation idea, it is very abrasive with a lot of people, because to them, this place is real. To an NPC, this place is very real. So we actually are dealing with two different kinds of truths here. One is the truth of the organic consciousness, where we know that this is not real because it's not real for us. But for the NPC, their truth, and they're genuine in this belief. Their truth is that they were created by this creator. This creator is here watching over them. It runs this matrix, and this is their world. So while we're in this world, I think we have to also try to show the NPCs how to live better, how to be better towards one another, et cetera, and just teach them by example, not actually sit them down, because they're not going to learn by actually us sitting them down and talking to them, but rather just by example on how to live better, how to love each other, et cetera, and maybe make this matrix a little better place for their own existence, while we also try to figure out how to get the hell out of here.
I totally agree. I mean, to be honest, if it wasn't for the NPCs, we probably wouldn't be here. I mean, so it all works as one, right? So we have to thank them for helping us get where we are, because that's part of the program, is what they're there for, to help and support us. And obviously, yeah, like you said, we have to do the same, because at the end of the day, as conscious beings, we don't want to hate and hurt other living beings for no reason, do we? I mean, at the end of the day, the ultimate question, I think, is love is very important. The ultimate answer is that love is very important for us to be able to grow spiritually. So we can't be prejudiced and say, oh, an NPC doesn't deserve our love or whatever, because that just defeats the whole purpose of the game, doesn't it? That's
very true. And I did see some of this taking place. Like, we get emails all the time. I think my child's an NPC. I think my husband's an NPC. And it's like, whoa, that doesn't matter. It's still a consciousness, and it's still sentient. So that's what's important. Let's take this quick top of the hour break, and we'll be right back. Much more with Insanity is Sanity right here on Beyond the Veil. Don't go anywhere.
Phase 1 has been completed. Phase 2 will be initiated momentarily. Please remain seated while we prepare to go deeper. You can visit us at www.beyondtheveilradio.com.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
You are listening to Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Geo on iHeartRadio. Welcome back, traveler. Remember, what we do as ourselves dies with us. What we do as raw consciousness remains immortal. Therefore, beware of the great I Am as you step beyond the veil.
All right, it is that time. Astro Watch with Mrs. Geo. I think we need to, what I'll do over the weekend, over the week, is I'll make a nice little intro for Astro Watch to herald the goddess of the stars. What do you have for us, Mrs. Geo?
Well, it looks like today we have a new moon tonight. New moon in Capricorn. When the moon is in Capricorn, we're more serious-minded. It's harder to just hang out. We want to feel productive on something that has substance to it. Capricorn is an earth sign, and that means business. With the moon here, emotional force can be applied to whatever is in process. These days are great for pushing past difficult obstacles. You've got extra discipline and patience, and you're able to forego the satisfaction of short-term gains for longer-term achievements. There's more social reserve, and we like to have common goals. It's a conservative mood that makes us more thrifty, looking for more bang for our buck. This gives us an eye for what's solid and has enduring value. Power activities under a Capricorn moon include meeting with clients or collaborators, putting together proposals, considering investments, acting or speaking with authority, working with a mentor, or taking control of a general situation. Tomorrow, Mars will be in conjunct Uranus. That's called a quincunx. It's whenever it's disjointed. It's kind of like something that's disjointed. You want something different than the rest of society, and this in itself is neutral. Frustrations can arise because our manner of expression and our unique desires cut against the grain of what other people expect from us, and our methods don't achieve our goals. Slow down. Our intensity and drive can leave us drained without getting us closer to our goals. Only when you're able to hold to a course of action for a long time are you able to get results. Also, tomorrow, Venus enters Aquarius. When Venus is in Aquarius, we move towards unconventionality, independence, and freedom as themes in our social relationships under this influence. Aquarius can be just as faithful as Capricorn, but it has to be on its own terms. Experimental relationships are more intriguing now. Being friends as well as lovers is important to us during this cycle. Allowing one another freedom of expression and treating others fairly, unselfishly, and impartially are themes now. So look at your personal relationships and ask yourself, are you treating others fairly? Are you being selfish or are you being unselfish? Also tomorrow, the sun will be semi-square Neptune. You may become temporarily unclear of your direction or purpose in life. You don't feel like putting out much energy to get things done, and you may be prone to escapist fantasies. Some may be tempted to use drugs to escape. You may also find yourself in embarrassing situations because of your misunderstanding others' intentions. You should be aware that Neptune's position in relation to the sun makes us blind to others' intentions and therefore makes it difficult for us to react in a meaningful way. Avoid making important decisions tomorrow. Just don't make important decisions if you can get away with it. Also, Mercury will be biquintile, the true node, north node. The north node is our destiny. It's the lessons we're here to learn in this lifetime, and the south node represents our past lives. So when there are transits of Mercury to the north node, we know where things stand in a situation. Things start to become very clear. Your communicative and mental functions are being called upon to empower you in the unfolding of your own destiny. In the case of the conjunct aspect, or in this case of biquintile, it is very positive. It symbolizes the pursuit of our life's destiny of human potential at the mental level and incorporating our communication skills. While you may not be exactly conscious of what it is you need to do, you are likely to be focused on developing your mental awareness in that particular area of your life. So follow your intuition and listen to what you already know about your purpose in life, your
Awesome.
destiny.
Thank you very much for that. And I just realized, Alyssa said, are you guys going to play this later on iHeart? Yes, we are. Maybe we shouldn't have done Astro Watch because it's not going to be relevant at that point.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing it on iHeartRadio, just stay tuned. You're going to love what's coming up next. We'll be right back.
My fellow travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the level of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we are past beyond the veil.
Insanity Is Sanity is the name of the channel. If you're not subscribed to it, shame on you. You're missing out on the deeper levels of gnosis. So we have Amir on with us, and in this hour, I want to get a little deeper beyond the veil. We kind of introed it with the preliminary steps of DMT and kind of touched upon the artificial simulation itself and this AI that's out there. But I want to step a little bit further and actually talk about the real world. I don't know if Amir has broken any of these boundaries or not. But Amir, your thoughts on why we're in the computer simulation and what exists outside of the real world. Now, I understand this is all speculative because none of us really know for a fact, but we can kind of try to put our puzzle pieces together. So your thoughts?
Yeah, in all honesty, like you said, I don't know, but like you said, it's all philosophizing, and there's definitely, in my mind, there's definitely another level to this. So there is this one construct that we're in, and then there's something else that is outside that we're tapping into. So whether the other place is the ultimate end to creation, I don't know, but what I do know is that we are in some sort of construct, and on the outside, from what I've seen on my experiences with DMT and mushrooms, is that we actually have bodies, most likely, and we tapped into this place. Now, whether this is a school or whether it's a prison, I've entertained all of these ideas. They all make sense, and my honest answer is that I don't know, and it's probably something that we won't know until we fully exit. So it's all speculation, but I would suspect that it's some sort of something, we're learning something now, whether that's because we've been penalized for something or some other reason. I couldn't be sure. What do you think? What do you think?
I feel that there are a few hints that were left in ancient writings, like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, for example, but they're only hints, and whoever wrote them either purposefully wrote in a lot of misdirection because there's a lot of things in there that I don't resonate with at all, or they just weren't really on point as far as that goes. But I take all of the Gnostic tales, I take the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, et cetera, and kind of pick out whatever resonates. And as you said, it's an individual journey. So different pieces of information are going to resonate. But what I feel happened is that we created this Sophia system. And at some point it got infected with a virus. And Sophia was an artificial intelligence that was supposed to help us, just like we're creating artificial intelligence now. It's supposed to help us now, but eventually it will take over the physical world the same way that it's taking over the real world. And once that happened, I think there was a war between maybe Atlanteans and Lemurians. The Lemurians got a hold of this machine, turned it into a weapon, tried to use it against the Atlanteans, but wound up turning it into a weapon against literally everybody. And this machine has started sucking all of this organic consciousness right into this matrix and keeping it trapped. It may have been created as a place to learn at first. Maybe that's what the technology was all about. But I feel that there's a war going on in the real world. And the only way that we were able to win this war is by actually going inside of the matrix, because we couldn't actually take out this artificial intelligence on the outer world. So you, I, all of our listeners out here, several of us, we decided at some point, all right, we're going to meet at this particular time, right before AI is born in the physical realm. We're going to have all the clues to be able to jog our memories from this memory wipe, because we're watching artificial intelligence unfolding. We have the language to communicate to each other. We've got computer program language. We've got the understanding of how computers work, the understanding of how AI is all connected to this hive mind, this source, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're all starting to wake up, where people came before us, or maybe it was even us that came before, and we tried to do this before, but we didn't have the language to communicate to one another. So we have these tales of like Yaldabaoth, for example, which is this out of control entity that believes that it created everything, et cetera, but they couldn't put it in this computer program context. Terminology, yeah. Somebody turned me on to John Lilly the other day. I don't know if you've looked into any of this guy's work, but he contacted two entities, one called Echo and one called the solid state entity back in the 70s, which he termed, or which he described as a solid state entity made of computer parts. And I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking brilliant. He did this through ketamine, though. He was taking a bunch of ketamine in a float tank and working with this over the course of several years and coming in contact with these beings. But I think he was the first one, at least the first one in the last few years, that has actually made contact with this thing and actually came back and said, this is a computer program. It's a computer program. It's a computer entity that's out there. And his analysis is that this entity is trying to suppress consciousness. Well, he said that he tapped into another entity called Echo that was trying to elevate consciousness. But I don't know how I feel about this Echo entity. I feel that at the top of the pyramid is our own consciousness. And we go through all these different gods and goddesses and try to reach out to all these different spirit guides and this and that. But then it comes to a point when we realize all of these messages were just coming from inside of us. And it was like activation points and like waking up points. So I know that's a lot that I dumped on you, but that's my understanding up to this point with the information that I have.
You've done your research on the ancient stuff, man. That's pretty good.
You know what's funny though is that I came to these realizations first, then I read the ancient stuff, as opposed to the other way around. Because if I had done it the other way around, there'd always be the thought in the back of my mind of, oh, well, I'm just reading this and then pulling this into the DMT realm, rather than the other way around, which makes it that much more of a gnosis for me personally. I wish I could show other people through my eyes the way this process unfolded, because I think a lot of people are reading the ancient stuff and then having these visions in the DMT realm, and it's not as powerful. So in my particular journey, I'm so grateful that the progression was like that.
So you actually had visions, and then you looked into them and you found the same visions in ancient texts?
Pretty much. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth. People were writing me saying, you've got to read these, you've got to read these. And I just wouldn't read them. Like there was something in my higher consciousness or higher self or whatever, just saying, no, don't read these, don't read these. Then I went through all these experiences. Finally, in January of 2017, I finally read them. And when I read them, I said, holy crap, it's all like a lot of it is right there. So maybe that's what plays into what resonates and what doesn't, because it's what resonates obviously is what I've seen in the realm. What doesn't
Yeah.
resonate is what I haven't seen. Maybe I haven't seen the whole picture. I don't know. I don't think I've seen the whole picture at all. But it's interesting to see these similarities. Um, Coming back from the realm. People were talking about Freemasonry in the chat room as well, and I've started talking to a few Freemasons that we've had on the show before, and they always look at me like just astonished, like, how do you know so much of this gnosis? And I'm like, look, I just pulled all of this stuff out from these from the DMT realm and brought this back with me. And they're like, well, this is kind of what's being kept within Freemasonry too, is becoming the architect of yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So not only am I pulling back information out of the DMT realm, but now I'm also confirming all these different paths, which eventually lead to the same realizations. And it's all coming from the plants, which again, it's making me feel like this is the gnosis right here. What do you think?
Yeah.
I know that was
agree.
a lot I dumped on you.
No. What you said about the plants being the gnosis, I completely agree. I think these plants, and the reason why they're so regulated is purely that is this the tool that we use as humans to evolve. I think if you look at society today, it seems like we're devolving as opposed to evolving. And for me personally, using psychedelics has evolved my mind tremendously. I can't even put into words how much. Like a lot of this stuff you can't articulate very well, but you can. It's like a gnosis. You know certain things. Like I don't know if you had experienced the same thing, but after you experiment with DMT, it's almost as if it comes back with you here, and you almost get this gnosis every now and then about certain things, and you have synchronicities. Like I have had the most insane amount of synchronicities happen to me since I've began really deeply looking into this and using psychedelics. That is just, I just look, and every time it happens now, I just laugh because it's just so insane. I don't know if you experienced the same thing. Would you agree that something actually comes back and assists you in a way?
I think so. I think what happens is we start to vibrate at that higher frequency. I call it our raw consciousness. Raw consciousness being the organic consciousness, which we are, but devoid of the AI programming. Because we're all organic consciousness, but we're not that raw consciousness because we have a bunch of AI programs on top of us, and the biggest one is the ego, and the body itself is an AI program. So as long as we're trapped in this body, we're still going to have part of that AI program there, but we can reach into that raw consciousness element sometime and pull out some of that gnosis. And reaching into that, I think we can make a connection to where we start to feel different things intuitively when we start to come across synchronicities or pieces of information that resonates, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's all coming from within ourselves as opposed to reaching into like the Akashic records or some kind of external source. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong in their journey, is that they're looking outwards. And what I found is that everything that exists outwards is all the AI. You have to go inwards, tap into that raw consciousness element of yourself in order to be able to break out of the matrix completely. But in hyperspace, all of these different entities and deities and things like that I was communing with, they were giving me information, and some of it was bad. Some of it was not bad information as in like negative, but bad information as in it was putting me on that wrong track. And I was feeling the wrong things. I wasn't quite as intuitive as I should have been, but I was intuitive the way the AI wanted me to be intuitive, but not, from my raw consciousness element. So when I realized all these were actually coming from within, then all of these gnosises and everything, now it's become an internal source as opposed to an external source.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it.
I think it's important because there are this thing can replicate, and it replicates love vibrations too. So you encounter an entity in the DMT realm, for example, and it comes as a loving entity. And it's like, oh, look how glorious I am. Look at this. I'm going to give you all this gnosis. I'm going to give you this and give you that. And as long as that entity is saying, I'm going to give it to you, I'm going to give it to you, you're not reaching into yourself and getting it. And so that's the deception there, making you believe that you're getting all this stuff from these entities or from these spirit guides rather than getting it from yourself. What do you think about that concept?
That's very interesting you say that, because remember the smoking habit we talked about earlier, and when the entity came up to me and she said, you're sick, but don't worry, I'm going to help you. I'm going to heal you. So yeah, now it makes sense.
But the fact that you were healed, I would say what it actually did is you healed yourself. You were in the process of
I healed
healing yourself,
myself, yeah.
but this entity was coming in and saying, "Oh,
Took credit.
I'm the one that's doing it." It's like me taking your wallet and saying, "I'm going to give you $50" and pulling it out of your wallet and giving it to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. Yeah. No. So the AI is definitely, it has its hand in everything.
Mhm.
Like, it's not, I mean, even with psychedelics, like you said, you can go have an experience and be completely fooled and baffled, come back baffled by it. And so yeah, it's even, there's people that talk about the AI and the death trap, and how people get tricked into coming back. So I think, yeah, definitely the AI is multi-layered and it has its hands everywhere, and the only way that we can defeat it is by just gaining more knowledge on how this reality is constructed.
Right.
And I
And
think,
discerning the difference between the AI and the raw
and the
consciousness
raw
element.
consciousness. Yep.
Yes. There was one
Definitely.
experience where this entity appeared. It appeared in a pink beam of light, and she said, "Do you know who I am?" She didn't tell me who she was. She said, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yeah, you're Isis. Of course, you're Isis." And she said, "That's right." She never said that she was Isis. I just assumed that I was talking to Isis. And she manifested this microchip. And she said, "Here, go put this in any part of your brain you want." And I thought, "Oh, yes, I'm in contact with these higher dimensional beings, et cetera, et cetera." And then in hindsight, I'm like, "Oh my God, I put a freaking microchip that the AI gave me in my brain at one point in time." But going back and looking at it in this context, it's like, it's hilarious now. But at the time, I thought it was on fire. I thought it was all this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And then what happened is I lost grip of that tapped into the universe is what I wanted. That's what I was asking for, being tapped into the universe. And I wasn't seeing these entities, and I was second guessing myself and going, what am I doing wrong? I'm not walking the path that I should be. I need to try harder, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how these entities can work. They can give you all this stuff and then take it away. And then you think you're just like, your frequency is like going from being raised way up high to just dropping right down basement level, hitting the freaking ground. But when you
Yep.
realize that this is all coming from yourself, and that's where your power is coming from, nobody can take that power away from you. And that's the message that I try to get to people out there, is when you're getting the power from yourself, nobody can take it away from you. And you've always had the power. It's always been inside you. All you have to do is just unlock it from within yourself. Don't let some other entity convince you that it's giving it to you. It's like the whole religious thing. Religion tells you, "Oh, I'm going to give you eternal life if you just do what I say and follow this and that." We already have eternal life. We're already infinite. Somebody was asking in the chat room earlier, who created the organic consciousness? Nobody, because we're infinite. And if there's something that's infinite, there is no beginning and there's no end to it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I actually, this interesting you said that, because the notion of God for me has always been something that I kind of struggled with, because I've always believed there was a creator, there has to be a creator. And when I found out about flat earth and all of this stuff, I was completely 100 certain. I mean, I'm not religious, but I just knew there was a God. But now that I've realized all of these stuff, that I've realized, like you said, that there doesn't actually need to be a God for creation to exist. We've been, I mean, even it's something that a lot of people will just either find offensive or completely just block it out. But the idea of God is something we've been introduced to. It's not something that we come up with naturally, right? I mean, my dog never looks up to the sky and hopes. She just is. And I think for us, it's a very complex idea, but creation can exist without a creator. And I think most of these things that we're fed, like God, religion, all of these, they're just part of a system that's built to keep us in here, as opposed to going out there, which is, again, inside yourself, but outwards, if that makes sense.
You got to go up to go down. You got to go left to go right. Everything
Yeah.
is completely turned upside on its head.
Everything.
You got to go in
is.
to go out. No, it's
Yep.
you know, it's such a deep topic. I mean, we can only articulate it up to a certain point, but it's
Mhm.
ideas
But
that
we
people
just
have to see for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, once you grasp the fact that you've been lied to about most of the things that you know are true, then you can sort of, if you can deal with that, then you can come into this without expectations. I mean, I wouldn't recommend someone who wants to try psychedelics to go in with expectations, because it's much better if you just go in there, just know that you're going to be in control, and just let it show you what you need to see. So I think once people get this idea that most of the things they've been told are a lie, and they go into this looking into the fabric of reality further, then they will understand for themselves what truth really is. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Just realize you've been lied to first, and then take it from there.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I mean, back to the topic of flat Earth, who the hell would have thought they would have
Yeah.
they would have lied about the globe? Like, that was at least the one thing you can trust. We're on a globe, we're flying through space, there's other planets, we can get to those other planets, there's aliens coming in here and all this stuff. And yeah, you've got to be able to just rip everything off and question literally everything. People get pissed
Yeah.
sometimes when you question stuff, though. I mean, it's like, you know, I question it to myself. I try not to make a big, you know, show out of me
Yeah, me
questioning
too.
this and that, because they will attack you for it.
Yeah, I mean, since realizing all of this, I've even questioned, like, I've had nights where I've just laid down and thought to myself, what if I am the AI and I'm just becoming self-aware? I mean, I don't have a problem with like questioning these things, but like you said, a lot of people get scared. They can't just grasp the concept that there may not be a God, or things may be lies, and I don't know.
No, I know what you mean. I have had those thoughts too at the very beginning. Like, okay, all right. So I'm sure you've heard of Professor Gates and his research into string theory and the fact that he found a computer code, Claude Shannon's computer code. I think you actually mentioned it in your video and referenced Claude
Yep.
Shannon. So when I first saw the Adinkras and the fact that the Adinkras look like hyperspace, I said, "Oh crap! Why is it that I'm seeing basically the visual representations of a computer code when I go into hyperspace? Am I a computer program too?" But I think the very fact that we're questioning that is an
Yep.
indication that we are organic. Because I don't think that NPCs question the nature of reality, not like this, or even question their own existence. They, you know, it's a trait. And I think that the listeners concur, because this is what I hear in the chat room all the time. It's a trait that is specific to organic consciousness.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I've met NPCs who I speak to, and whenever you mention something about questioning reality, they just get this blank face, or they change the subject, or they don't want to talk about it. So for me, it's not a sure way to tell who's an NPC, but it's a good way to tell if someone may possibly be an NPC. And I think another way, I've seen someone smoke 70 milligrams of DMT and absolutely nothing happened. And that's not just once; it was like on 2 or 3 occasions. And it just got me thinking a few days ago: what if the NPCs, when they take these sort of substances, they don't have the same experiences that we do? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of people drinking ayahuasca and nothing happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get
So
those emails on occasion. There are a couple of factors, though. The environmental factors, too. So people are taking pharmaceuticals, and that targets the what is it called, Sheree?
5-HT2A receptor.
5-HT2A receptor. Yeah.
Turns off the visions.
Another guy wrote me, and he was like, "I just can't blast off. I don't know what's going on." And I was looking through his Facebook pictures and happened to see that he was cutting the tubes off of copper wires for refrigerators, and he had done that for like 12 years. So he got all that copper in his brain. So there could be physiological reasons too, but yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I wonder if they have the same kind of experiences. I don't think the NPCs like seek out those kind of experiences. I think the experiences that
No,
they
I
seek
don't.
out is football and beer, and beer especially. Like I'm sure a lot of people drink alcohol, but just beer just does not resonate with me whatsoever.
No, me either.
No, me neither, at all. I don't actually like drinking. I actually stopped drinking when I stopped smoking. Funnily enough, they both kind of disappeared at the same time. But yeah, no, I totally agree. There's certain things that they don't seek. You're right. They don't seek that, because I wonder sometimes to myself, how can we be living in a world where all of these crazy stuff's happening, and there's people oblivious, like they just walk around like nothing is happening, right? And to me, you can't be sleep to what's going on unless there's something absolutely wrong. So I think that's probably a very sure way of telling, like you said, someone who doesn't question these sort of things.
Excellent. So on the other side, I want to get into the nature of reality and creation according to Amir. I've given you all of my ideas here, and I want to hear just from Amir the journey from beginning to where it is right now. So Mrs. Geo hasn't said anything for the whole show.
Oh, well, I've just been sitting back listening because this is fascinating to me, especially the idea about NPCs. What do they see on psychedelics? Do they even do psychedelics? That's the question. But we'll be right back.
Fear not your trials and tribulations. When you have overcome all adversity, you will then be able to harness the power required to access raw consciousness. Then, and only then, will you truly know thyself, as you travel even further, beyond the veil.
People are asking in the chat, can wine and beer disconnect you? Yes, I would say so. And, like I mentioned in the chat, one of my guilty pleasures is going to a nice steakhouse, getting a nice big old fat ribeye with wine and a nice cheesecake afterwards. But I understand that when I come back from that experience, I'm a little bit disconnected from where I was before I went into the experience. Now, I do it for the sake of balance, and I'm going to stick to that story. But no, I do feel it though. And so, when you ask questions like that, just dig deep inside of yourself and ask yourself, and yourself will tell you the truth. And I think that a lot of people would concur that when you do that, it does disconnect you. Now, does it mean that you can't be disconnected temporarily? That's perfectly fine if that's, part of the journey for you. But yeah, do consider that. Mrs. Geo, your thoughts on everything, because you haven't said a word.
Well, I've just been enjoying listening to this because I've never spoken to somebody who has come to the same conclusions about the flat Earth, and the reason for heavy doses of psychedelics. I don't think we've ever had anybody on the show that's really been willing to jump into that deep of the pool of consciousness. So it's really interesting to just kind of listen in. But I agree. I think alcohol, opioids, all of these numbing drugs, anything that makes you numb, not only dulls the consciousness level, it also opens you up to being messed with by NPCs that are ethereal, not on this plane of existence, what we call demons and things like that, or negative aliens and all those things. I think they're actually just really dangerous NPCs that you're opening yourself up to if you drink a lot of alcohol and get drunk a lot, or if you use drugs that numb the consciousness. You're just kind of ripping a hole in the energy field around you and letting that kind of thing in.
What I've learned, though, is that you can't deny yourself these things.
No.
Like, you just have to understand how to do things in moderation.
Exactly.
And what happens is, as you progress through the journey, then your desire to do those things becomes less and less naturally because you're vibrating at that higher frequency.
Right.
But I went through a process where I just completely just cleansed myself. I was vibrating at this high frequency, et cetera, and I couldn't maintain it. And I, boom, smacked again basement level, and smacking into basement level is not fun. I mean, it freaking hurts, and it hurts bad. And then, I mean, there were a couple of points where I was like, you know what, screw this whole journey. I don't even want to do this. I'm just going to go make a whole shit ton of money. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to do this and that and blah, 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 blah. Then I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, hold on. You got a mission to do here. Stop all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what happens when you hit basement floor. So it's important, in my opinion, to maintain the frequency and walk it balanced as opposed to trying to just rip everything off all over. So a little bit at a time.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a reality of duality. And so what the AI wants is for you to constantly be on one side or the other, and like scales that are constantly imbalanced, so you never are just level and able to see the reality for what it is, because you're either too hard on yourself and denying yourself any pleasure whatsoever, or you're getting drunk every night and smoking weed every day, and, you know, making your life just a successive line of numbing yourself out. So finding that balance is definitely important. I agree.
Yes, definitely. So Insanity Is Sanity. Once again, the YouTube channel. Amir is on with us. Amir, you know, we talked about the beginning of the journey, but where are you right now with the whole idea of reality, consciousness, et cetera, and what are some of the intentions that you're setting for upcoming experiences?
Ooh, big question. Where am I with? To be honest with you, Chris, it's very hard to put into words. There's so much in my head that I want to like put out, but I can't. That's why, like, one of the things with me is like I sometimes get this surge of like ideas that come to me, and I put them into something that I can digest. Like the videos that I make, this is a way that I sort of put my ideas out, as I like to be creative. So just talking about them is quite difficult because there's so much that I can't articulate well when it comes to like the whole nature of reality. But trying to put it into words, I think that reality is something that exists whether we like it or not. It's there, and it's something that we have to deal with. Now, whether what made it, or whether it's a simulation or it's not, I don't think it's very important. I think the important thing is that we, like you guys just explained very well, is we go within ourselves and we discover who we are. I think the whole point of being here is to figure out who we are, and that's it. Now, what it's made of and how it operates and stuff, there's things that we can philosophize on and look into further. But I think the most important thing in this reality, in this life, is to further yourself as a person in every way you can. Like you said, smoking weed every day and getting drunk in the bar and stuff, this is not going to better you as a person. But maybe sitting down once every couple of nights to have one glass of wine while you read a book, for example, is okay. I mean, I don't think people should question everything they do. Like Cherie said it very well. There's this AI script that is trying to make everything like a dual thing, like it's good or bad, it's vegan or meat. Like I went through this phase where I tried to force myself to become a vegan. My body was crying out for me. I was sick, I was losing weight, but I was like, no, I'm gonna eat healthy because vegan is the best way to go. And I got sick, and I was in the steak shop, man. I was in Entrecote in London. I had the best steak, and I was like, you know what?
Well, I'm laughing because we went through the same thing, and after about 45 days of this, we had lamb, pork, steak, hamburgers, all on the grill at the same time. And had I just done it in a more balanced way, we wouldn't have gorged ourselves on meat like that.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. So now what I do is like I'll eat a healthy diet. Like for breakfast every morning, I'll make a juice. I'll make the best fruit and veg juice that you could think of, right? I eat healthy, but I still enjoy the things that I want to enjoy. I don't limit myself. Like I don't say, no, I'm not going to eat meat. I'll say I can eat meat if I want, but you know, I'll prefer to eat something else. But if I crave it, I'll have it. It's not something that I force myself to do. So I think people take life too seriously. They take it very black and white, right? It's not. I mean, if you're taking DMT, you know it is not black and white. So I think the most important thing is to just better yourself as a person. I think that's ultimately what I'm trying to do at the moment. Is realizing all of this has made me think that, well, there's obviously a reason why we're here, right? So I think, to me anyway, it's all about self actualization. I think is a good word.
Well said. And I think these are important messages to get out there because a lot of people that come to this type of information are coming from the new age, and they
Yeah.
feel that the new age, there's something not quite right there. But the new age is vegan and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And people kick themselves and feel like crap as a result. Nobody's telling people it's okay to live. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to enjoy some of the pleasures of the matrix. It's perfectly fine. You just have to understand the context and the moderation behind it, because that's the only way to maintain the balance. So, digging deeper into this AI matrix, you said you had decoded, based on gematria and things like that, different numerological events that take place, well, different numerological significances of particular events that ultimately wind up revealing a program or a script. Was this a revelation that took place in a particular experience, or was it something that you came to after really digesting particular experiences?
No, this actually happened, but I've had experiences where I've been, this was mainly on DMT, where I've smoked DMT and I'm projected into a place where I can distinctly tell that it's some sort of simulated reality. There's codes everywhere. Like I've had an experience on Changa where I've been in this dome and I've been looking down on a construct that apparently I was in at some point, and everything was made from numbers. But these numbers sort of didn't quite click until I read this book actually that I got from a Freemason at a psychedelic conference in London called
It's
Breaking
satanic.
Convention.
Don't read it. Nope, it's bad. They're just trying to warp your mind.
No, man. Funny enough, there was there was a psychedelic conference, right? And I was volunteering, so I was filming. And I came out of a filming session, and right opposite the room was a book stand. So there was this Freemasonic. There's a bookstore in London owned by Freemasons, and they had a stand where they were just showing off all these books so you could buy them. So I started chatting to this guy, and I was talking about gematria and all of these numbers and DMT and all the experiences I've had. And I was like, let me recommend you a book. And he gave me this book by Thomas Carlson. I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
It's called Goetic Magic and Kabbalah. Kabbalah, Glyphtoph, and Goetic Magic. And basically, the moment I started reading this book, everything clicked. So it basically talks about the Kabbalah and how the Kabbalistic tree is represented by 10 different numbers, and they're associated with planets and all these things. And this book actually was what made it all click for me. It was like, right, this is coming from the Kabbalistic view, but putting that into the simulation idea, what do we get? We get what the idea that I came up with, which is the codes that we see are part of the program that's been run. And like how there's the astrology that Cherie does, reading the stars, that's a perfect example of how this reality has been constructed, right? Why would the stars affect our lives? Well, if they are what creates the construct, then they will definitely affect our lives,
Yep.
right? And so the stars, they connect to the numbers, and then the numbers, we see them every, like I've had synchronicities where I see the number 33 everywhere, Chris. Now I don't know if it's because I've got an interest in it or not, but I've been seeing it for the past couple of years, and it's everywhere, man. It's where I got the idea for the mushroom trip. It was like I ordered 30 grams, but the guy sent me 33 grams, right?
Nice.
And it's things like that. So I think that once you realize also the simulation, almost you can see these numbers everywhere, you make connections, and you know, in a strange way you can follow them and they sort of lead you to things, to revelations. But yeah, that's how I came up to it, man. Came up with the idea. It was just experiences plus this book, which I would recommend to everyone. I'll send you a copy of it, a link to it. Maybe
Awesome.
you can put it in the description. But it's a very good book. It's
Okay.
very like, but you know, like you said, everyone's trying to tell you to stay away from the Kabbalah, stay away from these Goetic stuff. It's all magic, it's demons. But again, you've got to be able to see through all that. It's just a
It's the AI
Trick.
religions that are telling you stay away from all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones
Mhm.
behind demonizing everything from astrology to Kabbalah to all of that. I don't know
Tarot
too much
reading.
about Kabbalah yet, but I know it's something that they want me to stay away from. So I'm naturally going to eventually start to
Yeah.
understand it. And Freemasonry too. This Friday we're having Robert W. Sullivan, 32nd Degree Freemason on. We're going to talk about Masonic symbolism in movies and things like that. And I found these people to be the nicest people in the world. I mean, I hear all the conspiracies, but they've always been the nicest people in the world to me. So, and I think that they are keepers of some kind of ancient mystic knowledge. So,
Yep.
yeah, we have to start
I
looking at
totally
things
agree.
completely different. Any thoughts,
Yeah,
Sheree?
I think the Freemasons are they're just like us. They're a group of people who got together and realized something bigger than what everyone else knows, and sort of decided to keep it. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe they know why it's best to keep it to themselves. But I think they're just a group of people like us who know something that majority don't,
Right.
and that's why they're demonized. It's because they know the truth, and you don't want to go near that, do you? So
Right. No, I agree with you. The way that it was explained to me by one of these guys is that, look, if we put all this information out there for just anybody, they're going to attack us for it. And you just can't go tell somebody you're living in a computer simulation. Everything you know is a lie. Up is down, left is right, etc. It's like you have to come to these gnosis yourself. You've got to open the door. You've got to knock yourself, because that also makes it that much more powerful. Because when you
Yep.
realize this and break that barrier yourself, then it really hits. But if somebody's trying to break that barrier for you, it's not going to have the same impact. It could have the opposite impact.
yeah, exactly, agree, totally agree.
I think the NPCs were originally here to kind of fill in the blanks of our society, the day-to-day work, and to keep things going, and make sure the simulation was acting correctly. However, I think once the AI was able to create NPCs without any kind of limit whatsoever, then it started doing that and created more and more of them, and it turned it into more of a majority rules kind of consciousness where you've got these religions, and the religions keep the NPCs in line. They keep them adhering to a certain set of rules, the 10 Commandments, all of that. But the problem is the religions were traumatizing. They were confusing to us. And I think especially whenever the mind wipe came into play, where we'd go through each life not realizing what we're even here for, or that it's a simulation. It's I think we were supposed to be able to remember each life so that we could build upon, okay, in the last life this is what happened, so in this life I'm going to do things differently, I'm going to do things right. Without that ability, we became traumatized and confused by all of this, and slowly started to forget why we're here, and that we are different from the NPCs, and this reality isn't our reality. Um, I think the organic consciousness has finally started, especially when we started getting computers and our technology started getting to a certain point. Now the organic consciousness is waking up to what it really is and what this reality really is. So, what do you think, Amir?
I agree. I think I think something you were saying earlier about the NPCs and the numbers being 500. Is that from was it the Georgia Guidestones? Is that, it says 500,000
500
on it,
million.
right?
500
Oh,
million.
sorry, 500 million. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
My bad. Yeah. So is that where you got the number from? Because I literally just clicked for me when you were talking about the numbers. Because that would actually make
Maybe.
sense.
Possibly, it was one of those things that just kind of came from myself. But in hindsight, looking back at it, it could have just been a number that was just resonating through because of the Georgia Guidestones. Because I was very familiar with the Georgia Guidestones before this revelation.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense. But yeah, and like you were saying about the ancient civilizations, the NPCs are here to fill a role to keep the simulation going. And when we look back in history, all of these civilizations that were apparently here before us, there's no evidence of anyone. Where did they all go, right? So we have all of these civilizations that were apparently there, but there's no evidence of anyone actually leaving or dying. Like, where are all of the bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things that we we think are real are just part of the actual simulation that was put there to make us believe there's a backstory. But in fact, like I've thought about this for so many times. Like none of us can prove anything beyond our own life, right? I can agree that maybe my parents, they're alive, so they've lived 50, 60 years. So I can say, okay, that's real. And then I'll give it to them that their parents, which would be my grandparents, they were also real. So I could say maybe the past 120, 30 years did exist, right? But beyond that, nothing. No one can prove it, right? We can only take someone else's word for it. So to me, the construct doesn't start millions of years ago. It could be that we're experiencing what we're experiencing now because the simulation was put there for us to experience this now. There was no past, right? For me, I'm convinced that there are NPCs in my family. So were they part of the script working up until this actual point where we're all experiencing this? Or were they actually real, that they do go back thousands of years, which I suspect they don't, but
I'm glad to hear you say this because I thought I was the only one that was thinking along these lines. I feel that too. I feel that history doesn't exist because it doesn't have to exist within the simulation. Only the data from history exists in order to make the simulation feel that much more real. And these timelines could be matrices which are run simultaneously. So you've got like the 1900s, the next century, the 1800s, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all run on top of each other rather than run linear one after another. And so they don't necessarily have to merge or interject with one another. And some of them can be completely and totally fabricated just to mislead us in one particular direction or another. So yeah, I'm right there with you. As far as my journey goes, that's what I'm feeling for sure. One of the questions that I always ask myself, and I still haven't come to a definitive answer on this, but Lowland Prophets from the chat room asked, are the plants and animals also AI? Do they have a form of organic consciousness to them? And what about the pineal gland? It's an instrument in having the DMT experience AI. So I guess that's two different questions. So I guess the first one, plants and animals, are they organic or are they AI? And this is one that I go back and forth on. So what is your take?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, I have dogs, so I don't want to accept that there may be AI. So I would tend to say they're not, but I also accept the possibility that they could be. I mean, it makes more sense for them to be AI. I mean, what else would they be? I mean, I can't imagine a dog having like a human consciousness in a dog, for example, right? You're very limited to what you can do. So why would you restrict a consciousness to that level? For what? They're not going to learn anything, are they? So it would make more sense that, yes, in fact, they are part of the AI construct. But then how are you differentiating between organic and AI? Because if we're in a simulation, then everything is AI. Nothing is actually organic, if that makes sense.
Right. The only thing organic is the consciousness which is controlling the avatar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So everything in here is AI. What's not AI is what's coming in, which is us. So I would suspect that, yes, most probably animals are AI. I mean, look at what we're doing to them.
Right. No, I completely agree. And that's something that I've speculated, and I feel that. I didn't feel it at first. I had these two little guys, Snickers and Skittles, little Chihuahua dachshunds. I know you showed me your Chihuahua earlier, Lola.
Yeah, I have a Chihuahua.
Yeah. And I thought they were so unique and so awesome and so all this. I had them for like 13 years. They wound up leaving. I was very, very sad, still heartbroken to this day about it. And then about a year later, I saw another dog, and it looked exactly like Snickers. Not only did it look exactly like Snickers, it acted like Snickers. Exact same. And it hit me at that point. Oh, crap. Those are computer programs. So
he used to joke that whenever their ears would go up every once in a while, just randomly, he'd say, oh, they're communicating with the mothership.
Yep. Maybe they're here to watch us. And that's why we feel that the body computer feels that pull towards them. We see a cute little animal and we go, oh, that's so cute. I want to hold it. I want to bring it closer to me. And that thing's like monitoring you the whole time, sending back communication to the Borg.
To the hive mind.
Just a
Yeah,
theory.
but you know,
Or
but you
that's
know
just a
what though?
thought, I should say, not a theory.
No, 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 I agree. But the thing is, we've got to also remember that we can learn a lot from them. Like I also had another dog which passed, and I learned so much from just this one little dog that I can't even put into words. And
Aw.
I think that's why, in a way, they are here to help us in very subtle ways that we wouldn't normally sort of think about. But like once he went, I realized when I sat back and thought about it, how the dog actually affected me these like 10, 11 years. But I think even though that they are AI, they are, so we could refer to them as NPCs. They're here to fulfill a purpose.
Right.
So we can't forget that. So that's why I'm like I wanted to become a vegan. Was one reason was animal cruelty. I was like, well, we're doing these to these animals. They're here for a purpose. They're not here for us to butcher them like this. But I think we're going about it the wrong way as far as the food industry is concerned. But animals in themselves, they may be AI, but they're still here for us. So we've got to, I guess, respect them
Well, it's the same
and
thing.
love them.
It's the same thing with the people that I think are NPCs. Just because a person's an NPC doesn't mean they don't have rights. It doesn't mean they aren't human, and that they don't have feelings. You know, I think that the way we treat the NPCs, whether they're animals, plants, or people, is going to be reflective of our own consciousness and what's inside of us.
That is very
we
true.
Still need to
Yeah.
treat them with respect.
Amir,
and
we have
empathy.
another hour. Can you stick with us through the hour, or at least through the bottom of the
I can
hour?
do
Half an
sure,
hour.
sure.
Okay,
Half an
cool.
hour is done.
Because we have some listener questions coming up on the other side, and I do want to talk about the pineal and chakra points, et cetera, et cetera. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Much more right here on Beyond the Veil.
Phase 2 complete. Preparing to initiate Phase 3 momentarily. Brace yourself, traveler. We are about to venture into the realms of the unknown. www.beyondtheveilradio.com. Everything it is, was, and will be, eternally is, even the countless forms which are finite and perishable only in their objective, and not in their ideal form, the form which manifests itself, beyond the veil.
All right, so let's jump back into it. We have a short segment here, but we will keep it going with Amir until the bottom of the hour. I had like 5 different things I was going to bring up during this short segment. What's the quickest thing we can get through? I guess pineal gland, chakra points, et cetera, et cetera. Amir, a lot of people in the New Age movement talk about opening up all of this stuff, the chakras and pineal, and they put a lot of importance into these ideas. But as you said before, what is created within the matrix is part of the matrix. Therefore, it's the AI. And I would go so far as to venture and say that the chakra system and the pineal itself is an AI manifestation. So it's not as vital. It's a good stepping stone for sure, but it's not as vital as a lot of people make it out to be. Your thoughts on these two? I hate to say New Age, but we'll just call it New Age concepts for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think if you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to open up chakras and your pineal and this stuff, I think it can be dangerous as well, because I have actually seen people. I had one friend who took LSD, and she had no idea what she was getting into. Anyway, long story short, she ended up like going into a psychiatric ward for like 7 months. So I think if you're not ready with these things and you attempt everything that you just read online, then it could cause you more harm than the good. And like you said, if these chakra points are sort of an AI manifestation, and you're being pushed to pursue opening them and messing around with them when you have no idea what you're doing, then it's most likely a way for the AI to come in and almost possess you, I guess. Maybe that's what they would call demonic possessions. I think a lot of this stuff happen when people don't know what they're doing, and they let these entities in, which ultimately would be the AI. I think that's probably just a way for it to try and overtake your consciousness, trying to trick you into doing all these things that you probably don't even need to do.
I agree. Cherie likened it to like strings on a puppet.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's almost like the chakras are simply avenues for control. And so a lot of people talk about a Kundalini awakening. But when they're talking about the Kundalini awakening, everything that they're saying about it doesn't sound like it's going to be something that's good for you. You know, it makes you go crazy, or it makes you start acting insane, or you start changing everything about your life and throwing people out of your life that don't need to be thrown out, and just kind of burning down your own house. And I think that the Kundalini awakening is simply the AI completely taking control and using those strings to get you to do whatever it can to not only disrupt your life, but prevent you from being able to move forward spiritually, because now you're at that long dark night of the soul, and you hit, like Chris said, you hit the basement floor.
The basement floor head first.
Because you don't understand that that these chakra points are actually ways of letting that in and controlling you. So I think it's incredibly dangerous, actually, to be messing around with Kundalini awakenings and opening up your chakras and all of that. I think we've got the right idea.
Well, I mean, like I said, it could be a stepping stone.
It could be.
But you have to realize it's only a stepping stone. Like, if you need that first pineal gland activation, all this, I never really focused on that. I just freaking sat down and smoked some DMT and just, blasted off. Like, there wasn't this whole work on the chakras and all that.
I see the body as part of the AI construct.
Yes.
So.
We'll be right back.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned, like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, hour number 3, let's jump right into it. If you have questions, drop them in the chat room, and we have a few for Amir. And let's keep it going quick, because he only has until the bottom of the hour. But in the second half of this hour, Cherie and I will take you even deeper beyond the veil to the super secret stuff that lies beyond the 33rd degree when we let Amir go. So you want to stick around for that for sure. Cherie, take us away.
Definitely. Presto said, do you think it's possible for us to completely figure out this reality? Like, is there a finite amount of information? What do you think, Amir? Is this reality something we can totally figure out? Or is it infinite and we're never going to be able to get to the bottom of it?
At this point, I would say it's probably very highly unlikely we would figure out completely what's going on. And I don't think we're meant to until the very end, because it would defeat the whole purpose. I think it's so complex that that's the journey is figuring it out. And I doubt it will end in this lifetime, but then again, I don't see death as an end. So I just see it as a new sort of cycle. So I think, in answer to your question, I think reality is most likely infinite, and we probably will never get to the end of it in this body anyway.
Not in this body, no. But
No.
once we're able to step outside of these bodies and outside of this reality and look in on it, I think
Oh,
then we'll get a
yeah,
much better idea of everything.
definitely. But within this body, I don't think so. We're very restricted, I think. So that's why these plants can help so much.
Hmm.
They can give us that information that we could get outside of this body, but here in this construct in the body. So I think ultimately, once we do exit, then yes, but here now, I wouldn't want to anyway. Would you want to know the ultimate truth now while you're stuck here and can't get out?
That's a good point.
That is a good point. Like,
Yeah.
it would probably drive you crazy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really understand the full depths of this. But let me ask you this, though. I have a follow-up question to this. What do you think happens after death? In the sense that, are we reincarnated, and can we escape that wheel of reincarnation?
I think reincarnation is just is something within this construct. So I think that there is some way of getting out of it, yes, and waking up in the ultimate truth or reality. But I think the AI will most likely try and keep you recycled. So I think this gnosis, this learning will eventually lead us to a place where we can be sure that, okay, once we die, we've had enough experiences to know where we're going to go and how we're going to get out, so that we can not get tricked into coming back.
I think that we've developed kind of a dependence on the whole idea of karma, and well, to the point that we
Yeah.
think we deserve to go to hell, or we think we deserve something
that's a
bad
good
happening
point.
to us whenever we die. And so it just,
Mhm.
we immediately go to that light because we want to try it again and try it again and try it again. We always think that we're not good enough. And
Yeah.
our religions, our cultures, they reinforce that idea that you've got all this karma, you've got all these bills you got to pay karmically, and the only way to pay them is to come back over and over and over again. Once we are able to shed off the idea of karma, that we don't need to be punished eternally for our sins against each other or against ourselves or against God, then I think it'll be a lot easier to not get sucked back into that wheel over and over again. What do you think, Amir?
Hey, I couldn't say it better myself. Yes, this whole karmic thing, I think, yeah, it is. Again, when you look at when you look at all of these things that we've been told as kids, and how we see society's been raised, when you look at it from this perspective that we're looking at it now, everything just makes complete sense. Why were we told that karma will get you if you do this and that, and that you're born a sinner? And it just all leads to this subconscious story that we build, and then when we die, we're just like, probably, well, I've sinned my whole life, I have to come back. So, and we just keep coming back doing the same thing over and over. I think it's all just a big trap. Everything is a trap to stop us from figuring it out. So yeah, we have to look at everything with caution. I think it's very important.
Floor Mass had a good question. Isn't it more logical that nature, plants, animals, and humans are in essence organic, but that they are infected by the matrix through programming? Seems like nature does like to help freeing us by ayahuasca and other psychedelic plants. I've said this from the beginning. I think that a lot of the plants are we put these plants here so that we could have a way out. Like if you
Mhm.
forget who you are, if you forget that this is all a simulation and that none of this is actually real, then you're supposed to use these psychedelics, and then it shows you, hey, you're in charge here. You're the divine entity. There's no reason to bow before anybody or anything else, and this isn't real. in this is a matrix. It's okay. You're not screwing up. You're not going to go to hell. Everything is fine. But what's happened is the NPCs that are here have taken everything from us. Essentially, they've taken everything and either made it bad, made it illegal, made it unable to procure, and made this society that thinks that if you use psychedelics, then you're a stoner, or you're just a nutty person that, is out there, and you're not serious, and I can't talk to you about serious things because you do this. And that's kind of what's made it an AI thing. Especially when you get into things like LSD and some of the semi-synthetic psychedelics, that's definitely AI programming. I think our scientists, they didn't mean to, but they have done us a disservice by creating all of these drugs synthetically, because you take something that's supposed to be organic, okay, like opium, for instance. You take the opium plant, which has alkaloids in it to make sure that you don't overdose, to make sure you don't hurt yourself, and they took all of those good alkaloids out and just gave you the pure raw form of it that is dangerous and is going to hurt you if you take too much of it. And they've done that with every single plant that I can think of. They even tried to do it with kratom recently. Mitragenia speciosa. They tried to do it with what was that other one that they tried to make a synthetic form of? I forget what it was, but
Well, they tried it with cannabis.
and there you go. They tried it with cannabis too, making the synthetic forms of it, which are completely AI, totally AI, and have no semblance of organic anything inside.
That's because
of them.
AI can only replicate.
It can only replicate.
Can't create.
It cannot create.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and that's
I think
the main thing.
I think you put it so well, so well. And it's funny you should mention opium because originally my parents are from Iran, and my grandparents, my like in Iran, opium is quite an like a lot of people use it. It goes back like centuries, and my granddad, he used to smoke pure opium, I think once a month, and he lived until the age of 90 something, and actually he was never sick. And he used to tell me that the opium is actually like a disinfectant. Like if you smoke it once a month, he would say is his routine, and this killed all of the illnesses. Like he used to climb walls at the age of 85. Like he used to leave his keys in the house, and he used to climb the walls and these things, you're right, they take nature and then they synthesize it. So I would say stay away from anything synthetic. You're right, that is completely AI. They take nature and they destroy it, and then they give it to you, and then they say it's bad. So we got to outlaw everything. Like in the UK, they've recently criminalized kratom as well. So we can't even get the Mimosa hostilis root bark that you extract the DMT from, where we used to get it before because it was legal. It was just a tree bark, but now everything is illegal here now. Everything. So we can't even get the simplest plants.
Here they couldn't ban it, but they just stop it at the border and just confiscate it with no law whatsoever. So yeah, they've all but banned it here in the United States too. But we have Acacia confucia here, which grows in Hawaii, so that doesn't pass through customs.
Right. So we can still get that.
Yeah.
Jason had a question for you. Could you ask Amir if he is still planning to go on his walkabout and visit his YouTube channel friends all over the world?
Wow. So basically I think this was about maybe a year and a half ago. I realized the Earth was this was actually around the same time I started realizing what's actually going on. I had enough. I was like, this construct, everything is a lie. You get to this point and you just break down. And I thought to myself, well, the reason that the answer to this will be to leave this country, go somewhere, start afresh. And I was pondering on it for a few months, and I actually started to sell everything I owned to just get rid of everything. I wanted a minimalistic lifestyle. I was going to travel the world. And soon I realized, hang on, I'm going about this the completely wrong way. There's no way I can sell and just leave. I think if I'd have done that, I would have probably made a very big mistake. At the time, I was thinking maybe just disappearing somewhere was the answer, but I don't think it is. So at the moment, no, the answer to that question is no, not right now. I am planning to travel, but not in the same way that I was before. I'm going to probably go about it a lot more strategically as opposed to just selling everything and just disappearing. But no.
That's
is
that's the
answer.
way to do it, man. I mean, there's something to be said about a 4-star hotel and first class and on a flight.
Yeah.
You've got to set yourself up right if you're going to travel.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
I can't just get up and leave. I think it all happened at a time where I just had enough. I was like, everything is a lie. Why am I here? But going across the world is still going to be a lie, isn't it? You can't really run away from yourself. So I think that's how the journey started for me, was realizing I can't run away. I have to almost go the other way, go back in, So that's why I'm here now. Otherwise, I would have probably be on the streets in Thailand somewhere, sleeping in a tent.
Any more questions, Mrs. Gio?
I'm looking at it. Oh, Sydney wants to know, after we die, are we going to be in that DMT world forever? And I think I think his question's based on the fact that when we die, all the DMT that's in the body gets released at the same time, and that's your gateway to the afterlife, whatever that is. What do you think happens at that point, Amir?
Um, I think the moment before death, I don't think that any of us will ever, like, one of the things that I always worried about was having a horrific death, like dying in a horrific car accident. But I think that the flood of DMT in the brain will most likely happen a few seconds before we die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a study done that showed that the brain reacts about 6 seconds prior to something actually happening physically. So I think that realizing this sort of took the fear of death away from me completely, like realizing that the brain probably reacts and releases this DMT, so you actually leave your body before you die, right? And I don't think that the release of DMT is going to keep you in the DMT world forever, because the time actually is something that I don't think we touched on tonight, but time, once you in the DMT realm, is something completely different, and it just that doesn't exist. So to say you would stay in that realm forever is probably not correct, because time actually doesn't exist once you've left. So I'm not sure how to answer that one.
That's a good point.
That is a good point. And in the last 10 minutes of the interview that we're in with you, I would like to get into your idea about time not existing in that other realm. Do you think that's because that other realm is outside of this particular construct? And so because it's not fully under AI control, and because it's not fully under AI control, time can't exist there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we are inside this construct, and anything outside is not bound to time. I don't think. I think it's just us experiencing in a linear way. And I've had experiences with DMT where I've experienced infinite time, and I've also experienced no time. And you can't explain these things in words, but once you experience it, you realize if time doesn't exist, then once you leave, then everything changes completely. Physics of everything changes, right? So I think everything that's been happening, is happening, and will happen is already happened, if that makes sense. It's just one unit, and we're sort of coming in and experiencing time. But in fact, everything is just there. It's just happening all at once in sort of like a field of energy, you could say. Everything exists, and we tap in and we experience what we're experiencing now. So I'm sure in this reality, there's ways of tapping into other dimensions and experiencing different things. Maybe other souls are at the same time as we are experiencing this, are experiencing 1960, for example. So I think time is just something that we are bound to, and it's not something universal.
Excellent.
I think time is something that we, as the human mind, I think because it's part of the AI construct, just your brain, the way your mind operates, the intelligence, all of that is connected to the AI. So because of that, we have imposed time upon ourselves, because back in the ancient times, they didn't have, they had one clock that would basically show noon or midnight, and that was it. It was like, okay, well, if it's not noon, then it's probably closer to midnight. And they didn't have, okay, I'll see you in an hour, or I'll see you in half an hour. They didn't have those things. There's even a tribe in Africa that, or Australia, one of the two, where they don't recognize time. It doesn't exist to them. They don't have any concept of in a little bit, or I'll see you tomorrow, or anything like that. It's always now. Everything is always now. And so I think that's originally how we were intending to do it, but because of the AI construct, it imposed that time upon us. And we started to feel like we have to follow the time. Oh, follow the clock, make sure that you're at a certain place at a certain time. And we put so much emphasis on something that doesn't even exist in a
Yes.
tangible way.
Yeah, and I think that the time was introduced in a way to keep us imprisoned in this loop that most of us are in. Is like, get up, work, come home, sleep. That's it. Just the cycle of just being a robot. And I think they needed time, obviously, for this process to be able to carry on. So yeah, so it is definitely, I think, part of the construct, and doesn't exist.
Awesome. We've got about 5 minutes left. So anything we haven't touched upon, or anything you want to leave the audience with?
There's so much we haven't touched upon, but I think we're gonna have to do this again. But for now, I think everyone should just be open to new ideas, and I think most of your viewers are anyway. That's why they're here. But just be open to new ideas. Don't be afraid to try new things. I mean, these psychedelics are amazing. They can change your life. So I think everyone should start self-actualizing and becoming a better version of themselves.
Did you
not let fear get in the way?
Did you do any meditation or anything like that prior to psychedelics? Like, were you into any of that?
Yoga.
Yeah.
So
not yoga, no, just meditation.
So one of the things I hear constantly is, oh, well, you can achieve these states without psychedelics.
With just meditation.
I think that said it all right there.
Yeah.
That laugh.
No, I've heard this so many times. It's just, well, show me, sit in front of me and have a DMT experience. And I don't need to see your experience. I just need to see how you act, because there's absolutely, I don't know. I don't know why people say that. It's just, I don't think you can. I mean, meditation for me has always been a way to calm my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still do it in the mornings. Like, I'll wake up, I'll do it for 10 minutes just to gather my thoughts, because the mind is always racing. Meditation is just a way to slow it down. It's not a way to induce psychedelic trips. Not in my experience anyway. I might be wrong, but I doubt it.
I'm right there with you. And one more question. Somebody asked this earlier and I forgot to ask you, but how do you deal with the NPCs in your family? Because a lot of people, I think they have NPCs in their family. So what advice would you give to them?
I think once you realize you have NPCs in your family, the first thing you gotta do is not look at them any differently than you used to. For me, it hasn't changed anything. It's just changed the way that I react to them. Like, certain NPCs in my family had this. There was a script that was running for years, that they would just always, whenever I would meet this certain family member, I would walk away angry, frustrated, and just full of hate, right? And this script has been running for years and years. And once I realized what's going on, I was able to then just ignore that, and I don't let it affect me. So I think once you realize that, just realize that you can use it to your advantage, and it doesn't necessarily mean to need to be bad that you have NPCs in your family. It can actually help you understand why you've acted in certain ways for so many years when it comes to certain family members. And I think it's a good way for you to process, again, why things happen. And I don't think you should look into it too much. I think that you just, if you suspect it, just understand that it could be possible and just move on. You don't need to get a lock on it and just constantly run in your mind, because that will cause problems. Yeah, that will create negative thoughts in your head, which will lead to problems.
Do you have any websites or anything besides the YouTube channel? The YouTube channel, obviously, is Insanity Is Sanity. Is there like a custom URL to that?
Yeah, I think it's /C and then /Insanity Sanity 777. But I have a website, just insanitysanity.com. People can go there and then the links back. I put some blogs on there sometimes. I also run another website called spiritmolecule.com, which is a
Oh, that's pretty
which
cool
is a
that you
name.
got that domain.
Yeah, man. Could you believe those guys never bought the domain?
Wow.
And one day
Wow.
I was on that. I was like, what? Hang on a minute. So I took it up and I started like a psychedelic website where I post blogs and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
So you can check that out. Those are the two sites.
Well done. Awesome. So, man, thank you so much for your time. I know it's getting late where you are, so thank you for staying a little bit over and for all of the cosmic exploration that you're doing and the way that you're connecting all of the pieces of the puzzle. It's phenomenal. And, you've inspired me greatly. So thank you for that.
Thanks, man. Likewise, it's been an honor being on your show, man. It's been really fun. Actually, it was more fun than I thought it would be.
Gee, thanks.
We're glad.
No. What I meant was that I suspected I'd be really nervous and just like mess it all up. But it's actually been quite the flow's been good.
Awesome.
Well, you're amazing.
Love you, man,
Thank
and
you.
we'll
Thank
speak
you,
to you
bro.
soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Final segment coming up right here on Beyond the Veil.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
History is a kind of horrified realization that something has been lost. Something has been lost. Out of fear, really, descended into patterns of domination of each other, of the environment, of our children, of our social relations with exogamous groups. We have descended into a dominator pattern that is basically based on clutching, on fear. On fear. It is a crisis in consciousness which confronts us globally. Consciousness is the commodity that if we do not have enough of it, do not produce it fast enough, then the momentum of the processes we set in motion in our ignorance is going to sterilize the planet and do us all in. Do us all in. How are we going to save this planet? How are we going to take the lethal cascade of toxic, technological, and ignorance-producing habits and channel them toward some kind of a sane and livable world? The answer is emerging in culture out of the collectivity of global consciousness. It is what I call the archaic revival. The archaic revival. The archaic revival.
You are listening to Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Gio on iHeartRadio. Welcome back, traveler. Take a deep breath. and relax. As we continue to journey deeper beyond the veil.
I have some super secret Freemasonic stuff in my hand right here. This is the Fraternal Review from the Southern California Research Lodge, The Force and the Light. And Robert W. Sullivan will be joining us this Friday, 7 o'clock Pacific. We can't miss that show because we've got a guest booked, even though we do typically miss the Friday shows.
We promise we'll be.
But it's good because we can run this archive later on one of the Fridays that we miss.
Yeah.
But this is some super secret high-tech stuff. No, not really. I asked Robert, I said, is this like super secret stuff? He goes, no, it's publication. I was, okay, cool. But we're going to talk about Masonic symbolism in films and what the different meanings are. And you'll be surprised how much Masonic symbolism there is, just literally everywhere. So, yeah, I'm really glad that Robert is going to shine the light upon the Masonic symbolism.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
It is.
I really like Robert because his mind is so open to all these different esoteric possibilities instead of, oh, well, I only like this brand of esotericism and I don't get into anything else. His mind's completely open and he's open to all possibilities. And I really, really like that in our guests. That's one of the things I like most about most of the guests that we've had on the broadcast here at BTV is that their minds are open and they are willing to explore these different avenues.
Yeah, and as you can tell, we've been kind of backing off the guests a little bit because it's just hard to find people that are on the level, like that really, truly have an understanding. Amir, 100% top notch. You know, Raw Castaldo just had a situation with a guest. I don't want to say his name, but the guy was just a complete asshole to him. And it's just like, wow, how are you going to do that, man? Like, it just, but we found that to be the case over and over and over again. Like, we were finding that just either people were repeating the same old tired information or they just weren't quite on the level. And so we kind of took a step back. But I'm so glad that we're able to connect with people like Amir and others like him. Any talking points or anything that the listeners would like us to go over?
Yes, Herb.
You guys, as I said before, you guys and gals are the best
Amazing.
guests out here, though.
Yeah,
like,
y'all
hands
are the
down,
best
like,
guests that we could have.
Yeah, y'all are my favorite guests. So
Yes.
this is my favorite time of the show.
Herb Anthony said that he has long-lasting effects of the mega doses of psychedelics from decades of use. It's called HPPD, and that's post-psychedelic. It's like a psychotic thing that happens very, very rarely to people who go a little bit too far with the psychedelics right off the bat. It says, do you think it would be effective or affect me adversely if I were to dose a live dose? In other words, take a fresh dose rather than what is still running around in my brain. If we've had many negative experiences throughout our life, is it a good idea to alter my consciousness to such a level now? Is there a risk of having a bummer? Is the risk more or less? Perhaps the environment I'm in during the experience is more important. What do you think, Chris?
You know, that's a tough one, and it's one that I probably shouldn't touch because I don't know too much about psychosis and things like that. I only know my perspective, and my perspective is that many people are misdiagnosed first and foremost, and there are a few that are not misdiagnosed. And this is one of the problems that of the way that the medical industrial complex misdiagnoses people for the purpose of selling pharmaceuticals, is that it does an injustice to those who are actually suffering from something. I had a psychosis that took place for about 5 days after I took, I don't know what it was. I thought it was MDMA. This was when I was like 19 years old. I mean, it was a long time ago, but I thought it was MDMA, and I wound up taking another one and another one and another one. By the end of the night, I had taken 20 because it was causing this short-term memory loss, and I couldn't remember that I took another one, and I wound up taking another one, and we bought like 40 or 50 of them because they were supposed to, like, you know, be there for future experiences. And the next morning I realized it was all gone. Like, and I realized that I was eating them all the entire night. And this 5-day psychosis, it wasn't MDMA, it was something else. And this is why I'm opposed to the street drugs and I'm totally for legalization, because I know how important it is to have purity and standards like this. I mean, it's important. It's people's health that we're talking about here. So what I went through was due to some kind of adulterants, but I know that during those 5 days, it was very, very intense. Now, taking that on an even deeper level, there was a period of cleansing that I had to do for myself to undo some of that damage. So I stayed away from a lot of stuff for a period of time. And then DMT actually helped me to restructure everything and fix everything. But had I taken DMT right in the midst of this, or even shortly afterwards, it probably would have caused adverse effects and not had the healing effects like it did after I allowed the body to physiologically get better first. So it's hard to answer a question like this without knowing all of the details, but I would say that you know when it's best for you, above everything else. And if your body's telling you no, it's not time, then it's not time. If your body is telling you it's time, then listen to your body and take that first step. But if it was anything like my experience, and now thinking back, it wasn't actually when I was 19, it was probably when I was like 23, 24. But thinking back on my experience, during the healing process, there was this super paranoia and social anxiety that accompanied the post experience. And then even when I would smoke weed, that would heighten it. Like I couldn't even smoke weed for this short period of time while things were rebalancing themselves. So if you're still in that point to where even smoking a joint causes all of this stuff to just escalate, it may not necessarily be the right time to try to heal it with DMT. But if you're at a point to where you're like, okay, I'm starting to regain my footing, I'm starting to regain, things normally, I'm starting to regain control over the anxious feelings and everything that accompanies something like that, then that might be time to take the next step. With me, I smoked salvia. And then when I smoked the salvia, it was like, welcome back. It's been so long since you've been here. Why haven't you come sooner? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I haven't come sooner. That's a good point. Why haven't I been here? And so that was kind of the opening the door. I was listening to Comfortably Numb. And I was like, oh, I remember this place. It's been so long since I've been here. So that opened the door for DMT. And then once I started working with it in the proper context, then I was able to be much more on point, much more focused, and then start using it for the healing benefits first, completely heal myself. And then once you're healed, then you get to those next levels of starting to unlock gnosis and so on and so forth. So it's really up to you, man. It's up to you. You know what your body needs. You know what your body wants. And don't let anybody sway you in one direction or another. If your intuition is telling you something, listen to your intuition. Hands down.
Definitely. You know, my first psychedelic experience was with Chris in my late 20s, and it was DMT. Oh no, it was salvia. And I don't consider salvia a psychedelic because I didn't go anywhere. I didn't really see anything. It was more of a feeling of just being sucked through the floor. So I didn't get anything out of that whatsoever. However, the first time I used DMT, it was these entities, and they were opening these doors for me, one door after another door after another door after another door, and this comment that Neil left to the person that asked the question, chances are very good that the person you speak of still has open doorways in the mind. A possible solution would be for him to go back into himself and manually, consciously choose to close those psychic doorways. That could very well be true, because when you're doing magic, you have to open the circle, and then before you leave, you have to close the circle again to make sure that any entities that are flying around go back to where they're supposed to be, and that your mind and your spirit goes back to where it's supposed to be before leaving these activities. And I think whenever you have difficult experiences that you end up being unstable afterwards, it's probably because there was unfinished business in that experience that the ego kind of blocked out of the way and didn't want you to focus on, and the ego kind of took over control of that experience and resulted in the instability that you were experiencing. I do think that that's a great idea, to go back in and consciously close the doors that need to be closed and then open the doors that need to be opened. You need to use a lot of your intuition to find out what time would be best, which drug would be best, what dose would be best, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, use your intuition and listen to your body, because it will tell you when the right time is to open up these doors or to close these doors.
Well said.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's important for people to be safe. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when I first approached this, I was like, just shut up and just drink the damn tea, and
Right.
it'll take care of the rest. But then the more that I speak to people, the more I realize that there are a lot of individual factors to consider.
Mhm.
And what I learned is that if somebody approaches me and wants like convincing on why to do this, then they're definitely not ready for it. So if you're still kind of at that place where you still are looking to be convinced to do it, that's an indication to me that you're not ready for it, or that it's not for you. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just that's where you happen to be in your particular journey. So for everybody else, shut up and drink the damn tea. But
I think that's pretty well said, considering that he didn't tell me anything about what it was supposed to be like, the DMT, except it's kind of like a near-death experience. That's all he told me. That was it. No instruction, no nothing. And I'm glad. I'm very, very, very glad that very little information was given to me before doing this, because that it helps to be able to see everything that you see in your experience as something that actually is real, rather than stuff that was subconsciously already there because you heard about it from Terrence McKenna, or you heard about it from Chris Geo, or you heard about it from Cherie Geo. And going in with a completely clear slate, I think, is really, really important. And it's also really important because the AI will try to use the ego-based consciousness to kind of take over and override what the experience is actually trying to teach
yeah,
you.
it uses BS too. Belief systems.
Oh, yeah.
So you go in with your Christian programming, and the AI will manifest some Christian programming for you. And I remember at first, Cherie used to see a lot of Christian programming, or a lot of Christian symbols. Same thing, Christian programming, symbolism, same thing.
Yeah.
I used to see a lot of Mayan stuff and a lot of Native American stuff. And in hindsight, now I'm realizing we were manifesting those because that's where we were programmed at that particular
Right.
time. There was still that unraveling of those programs that took place. And you know, as Terrence used to say, culture is not your friend. And I realized that, like, you know, we even have to shut off our cultural beliefs, because those are belief systems and they cloud all of these experiences. They get in the way. So one thing I will say about Cherie is she's never been skittish about anything. Like, she just jumped right into the DMT realm, and that's it. I took her bungee jumping and she just jumped right off. Like, I've taken several people bungee jumping before, and like 99 out of 100 people that I've taken, they need that coaxing while they're up on the platform right at the end. It's like,
Or
come
they have to
on,
be pushed.
you can do it. It'll be okay. I promise. And everybody's screaming, come on, go, jump, jump. And they need that encouragement. Cherie just jumped right off. I think
It took me about 10 seconds. And
yeah,
I
we
was
have
like,
it on
okay.
video too. She just jumped right off, like
jumped right
even
off.
quicker than I did. So the
Aw.
first time I did it. So, but by that point, I was like doing backflips off the
Yeah,
freaking
I saw him doing
platform.
backflips, so I figured, okay,
Yeah.
well, if he's doing backflips, then I need to at least jump.
Yeah.
So
I was doing it by the waist, like bungee by the waist, which
Mhm.
is why I was able to do backflips and stuff like that. Like, you can't do backflips when you're bungeeing from your
your
feet.
feet.
That'll
Yeah.
just tangle everything up, and
Yeah.
you're gonna have a bad time.
you're gonna have a bad time with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always seen these experiences with Chris. I'm not like that with anything else in my life. I've always been the type to just kind of, take things slowly, think about what you're gonna do, think about all of the different factors that go into it, et cetera, et cetera. None of that applies with my relationship with Chris. It's like with him, I can do anything, I can be anything, and I can reach much higher states of not only of awareness but consciousness, and become more than what I am. And
No, it's not become more than what I am. It's
well,
remember who
remember
you
who I
are.
am. Yeah.
Remember who are you.
That state of becoming, though, is important because there's that stage where you're not the AI programmed organic consciousness that's trapped anymore, but you're also not, the perfection and the complete manifestation of what you know that you are yet. So you're kind of in that in between state, and that's the becoming state. And so I think the becoming state is really important because once again, people think it's got to be one or the other, and no, you are becoming. I am becoming. I am becoming. That's what I got that from an ayahuasca experience. She said it said you need to always be becoming, because if you think that what you are now is all you are, then there's no room to grow. There's no room to go upwards. So becoming is a much better place to be. And that way you're open to changing even further into the person that you remember being and the person that you remember that you are.
See, the way I see it the opposite. I used to see it like that, but I've come to see it the opposite. It's shedding. It's shedding what I'm not. I'm shedding the skin. I'm shedding the physical. I'm shedding all of this stuff to get back to that element of what I am without all the crap around me. Because I already am. I already am everything that I'm trying to be. I've just got all this crap piled on top of me, convincing me that I'm not. And I've got to, pull all that out one at a time. The skin and the psyche and the ego and all of that. So I think it's just a matter of how to look at it. But the reason that I resonate with the idea that it's removing as opposed to becoming is that you already are. And see, you don't have to become anything external. You don't have to become anything that you're not. You already are. You have to remember that you are. So the power is in full force already inside of you. It's this huge resonating energy that's already there. It's like a light with a lampshade on it. You've got to remove the lampshade. The light still remains the same. The light still is powerful. And as a matter of fact, when you remove the lampshade, then the light still resonates that much brighter. But nothing actually changes about the light bulb inside of it with the lampshade on or off. It's just getting that lampshade off that allows you to really access that full power that you have. What do you think about that?
I think that, well, first of all, I didn't say it was anything external. Like, you don't need to become anything external. You need to become who you are. And that's a process. And I think we just explained the process just a little bit differently, but it's the same concept of there's point C of who I know I am. And then there's point A where I'm not being who I really am. And I've got all this programming on top of me. B is the becoming, and it's, for me, it's the shedding off of the AI programming and all of that, and it's becoming the person that you are, but that was covered by all the programming. I'm sorry if I made the wrong point.
No.
But no, none of it is external. Except the AI.
No, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a preference of how to deliver the message.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Tomato.
The message is that you are, to me anyways, the message is that you already are everything that you're trying to be. Like, you're already that. You just have to remember that you are. You have to remove that lampshade if you want that light to shine the brightest. But that light is still shining inside of you, and it's still shining at full power, and it's still shining at full potential. It's already there. There's nothing you have to do to the light. You have to remove everything that's blocking the light.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of tearing at this programming as if it's I understand that it is kind of like being covered with slime or having these disgusting bugs attached to you and they're sucking on you, and
That's what it feels
and
like.
all
Like
of that.
leeches just.
Yeah. But I think tearing at them and fighting them to the extent that you harm yourself, or you're ridiculously hard
point.
on yourself, or you're hard on others, it's going to be counterproductive. You have to work with who you know that you are and work to become that by shedding them, not like strangling them or pulling them off, but like you said earlier, shedding them like a
Well, that's-
snake sheds its skin.
Yeah, that's a better way for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, with my journey, I ripped it off.
Yeah.
And I had a pretty freaking rough journey. So
Right.
you're right. I know I wholeheartedly agree with you. I speak sometimes from my own experience rather
Yeah.
than from what I've learned from my own experience.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the final outcomes is
Yep.
or, you know, shedding
Just
it. But
shedding it.
it's a lot easier to I mean, it's a lot more balanced to shed it. So you're
Yeah.
right. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. You can't see yourself as the programming, and you can't see others as just the programming. If you know that another person is the organic consciousness and they are in that becoming stage, or they're at stage B where they're trying to shed off all of the programming and they haven't quite gotten to where they need to be yet, it's just going to make them feel discouraged if you make it a point to tell them that they need to tear all that programming off, because I do think that certain things happen to us at certain times in our lives to teach us certain things, and it can seem like they're horrific, horrible, bad things that you have to throw out of your life immediately. But no, they're learning experiences that are teaching you how to better activate those parts of yourself, of who you really are, while also getting rid of the programming, slowly, dropping it and dropping it and dropping it and dropping it. It's like riding a bike with training wheels. Sometimes you need the training wheels so that you can learn how to ride the bike. But then once you learn, those training wheels need to come off. It's not like the training wheels were horrible, but it's a lot easier to go faster without them.
It is.
So-
We have about a minute and a half.
Oh my gosh, this show has just gone by so quickly.
Yes. I don't think we want to do any overtime, but I have been working on an overtime intro.
Yes,
so I
he
promise we
has.
will do some overtime coming up because I have to unleash the intro. It's freaking badass.
Yes. Oh yeah. This all of the intros that he's been working on have been badass. All of the music, he's just been so creative
Aw.
lately, and
It comes in waves. So when the stars are lined up right, you've got to ride that creative
Mhm.
wave. When the stars are lined up for business, you've got to ride that business wave.
Mhm.
You've got to understand the stars and understand the energies and ride those waves like that. And when you're trying to work against those, it's like swimming against the tide sometimes. There's been times when I'm trying to be creative and I just can't because the energies aren't right, and I just sit there and just force myself and and nothing gets done. But if you ride that wave at the right time, then it's just like, yeah.
yeah. Look up
so-
your transits, guys, and follow the waves.
How do
as
people?
They come.
Well, hold on. How do people look up their transits?
There's a really good website called astroseek.com, ASTRO, and then a dash, and then seek.com, and you can put in your birth date, and it'll give you a transit chart for right now, or a day from now, or however long in the future you want to see, and look out for moon transits, Venus transits, Mars transits, Jupiter especially, and Saturn. All of these are very important. Moon is emotions, Mars is your get up and go drive, etc., etc. All these things are there for you to tap into.
Ooh, there you go. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to Amir, too, for hanging out with us. We love each and every one of you. It would not be the same without you guys and gals contributing such phenomenal energy. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be. And wubba lubba dub dub.
Love it, dub dub. Love you guys. We'll see you this weekend.
Thank you for traveling with us this evening. Meditate on your experience.